that Vice Chair Bobrowski will not be here, at least right now, because he's in a hearing, one that he could not reschedule. And Mr. Darby is absent as well. It gives me great pleasure to introduce yourself and present to others, Dr. Kendra Stewart. Give her a hand as she comes.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me. My role today is simply to moderate and keep people on time so that we don't all have to stay here all evening. And so we'll go ahead and jump right in and get started. And Mr. Lesane is going to come up and I will let you know if you start going beyond your time, but I know that you will not do that. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kent Lesane. I have been with the Association of Counties for a little over 18 years, and I just recently moved into this new role as of July. Prior to that, I was the director over our legislative arm, and so I've gladly passed that off to someone else, but they'll still have me doing some legislative stuff. So I get to do things like this more often, so I'm glad to be here. I do want to thank you all for allowing me to be here, and I also want to thank you for choosing a location that only allowed me to have to cross a mini bridge. I love Charleston. I don't love your bridges. So thank you all for that. So with that in mind, I'm going to take up just a little bit of your time to talk overall about policy, legislative role of council, as well as the role of your administrators. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and get started, and I'm going to try to leave time for questions, but if you have a question as I'm going along, feel free to interrupt me at any time. All right, so county council. When I think of what your role is for a county, you're essentially the engine. County does not work without you all. Yes, there are other elected offices, but the engine that makes the county move is through council. So a very, very important role. But again, because there are other elected officials, that also can be a challenge. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little later on. But again, just understanding that. So you have the authority to enact regulations, resolutions, and ordinances that are not inconsistent with the general laws as appears necessary for the proper security, general welfare, and convenience for preserving health, peace, order, and good government in them. So again, very, very broad area of concerns that you wield as members of council. I'm going to highlight just some of your functions. Again, you already know, and I'm not going to touch on everything even on the slide, and this is not exhaustive, but just a couple of things to highlight. Of course, you hire the administrator, which is the chief administrative officer of the company, of the county. There are 4 different forms of county government, and so we use that CAO term because in other forms of government, there's the manager, and some there may be referred to as the director, but again, they fulfill the same role. You hire your clerk to council. You adopt your corporate seal. You can purchase, sell property. You can enter contracts. You have the power of eminent domain. If there's a project where you need to declare property for public use, you can do that. You appoint boards and commissions, and I know from a previous matter that came up in the General Assembly where I had to collect the number of boards and commissions that counties have, you guys have quite a bit of them. So again, all of that is under your purview as well. And the thing everybody loves, you assess property taxes, and I tell people all the time, I'm a citizen like anyone else. I hate taxes as much as the next person, but I do enjoy having police, fire, EMS, and all of the other services, and that money has to come from somewhere. And our system, by and large, has been set up through our system of property taxes. So again, that is one of your functions. And then Here's another one: to establish such agencies, departments, boards, and commissions as may be necessary and proper to provide services of local concern for public purposes. So again, that's a very broad-reaching discretion that you have within your role, apart from the specific duties laid out in our laws here in South Carolina. Your legislative arm and your policy arm, though, they go hand in hand. And so more on the policy side, one of the things that you are responsible for is developing a personnel system for your county employees. And this falls and will be true for all of county employees that fall under the purview of county government under your administrator. The exception to that, of course, is the personnel for other elected officials' offices. So again, they may choose to adopt your policy that you've set in place, and of course, if they have, then they have to follow what's been adopted. But again, if they choose not to, they can decide how they're going to handle this matter. But for purposes of all of the county employees that fall under your jurisdiction, through your administrator, you set your personnel policies and procedures. Provide an accounting system. You can decide how land is used, from zoning, things of that nature, appointing a zoning board, those kinds of things. You establish policies and procedures for issuance or generating of revenue and bonds, and again, a big responsibility. Again, you've got limitations within the law, and I won't go through those because I know you all are very well aware of just what limitations the General Assembly has put on you. But within the confine of the law, you do have the ability to come up with ways to generate income for various projects to meet the needs of the counties as you see fit. You play a very, very important role of shaping not only of the engine, but you also play an important role in the direction of where the county goes, from growth to when industries may come in, things of that nature, how you deal with individual problems that may be unique to your county. I know one of the big issues that you all have here in Charleston County is housing. And so because of that, you probably have come up and do some things a little different than maybe some of the other counties, because again, that in particular is a challenge with all of the growth that you all have experienced. And that might not be the case in maybe an Allendale or a county of that nature. Again, a lot on your plate. You can grant franchises for your cable companies, things of that nature. You're also able to have business license taxes, and you all, Charleston County specifically, is one of the 9 counties that have chosen to implement a business license tax. Primarily, this is used by municipalities, but counties have the ability to do it, and so far at this point, 9 counties have chosen to take advantage of it, and you're one of them that have implemented that. So again, that is obviously a source of generating some revenue. You also have the ability to participate in multi-county projects. You've got several neighboring counties here, and I know just from my overall understanding, you all work with them in some various capacities in some various different ways. So again, county council plays a big role in shaping how you all work collectively to address not just county specific issues for your county, but really more of a regional problem for the various counties within this particular area. You enact ordinance for the implementation and enforcement of powers granted in this section and provide penalties. So things like code enforcement, your litter or animal control, you're able to make violations within the jurisdiction of what magistrate court will allow you to be able to cite someone for whatever violation is in an ordinance. You all determine that. you undertake and carry out slum clearance. And of course, that's a little different from, one of the powers that the municipalities have, which I know we've been trying legislatively for years to get counties to do, and that's being able to clean up an area, but then being able to put a lien on that property to recoup the cost for the county. But again, that is one of the things that is in statute for what it's worth. Conduct advisory referenda. Sometimes you may decide, okay, we think what we have is a good idea, but before we go down this road too far, let's see what our constituents think of it. And so what you're allowed to do is put up a referendum to either advise or to get feedback from your constituents as to whether or not this is something that the residents of Charleston County would like to see. And that could be any number of things, whether looking at changing the form of government or anything of that nature. This might be a good example of where you might, rather than go down the road of actually trying to get through that process, this is a way to get some feedback on the front end as to whether or not that's even going to be worth your time. Because if your citizens don't want it, ultimately they vote on it. Why waste the time and money if you already know that that's not what your citizens want? Even though you as council might think it might be in the best interest. That is part of the give and take with you and your constituents. You can obtain injunctive relief in the court for nuisance businesses. Any number of things might fall into that category. You have a particular bar that, unfortunately is just constantly having to have law enforcement called because folks get out of hand, and it's just become a problem for your community. So again, if you build a history with something like that, then you are able to address that through the courts. And I do know there are counties that have done, I know Richland County has had some issues with businesses that they've had gone and had to have them shut down because they presented such a problem for the communities. And exercise such other powers as may be authorized for counties by general law. So again, that's another very general overarching. If it's not specifically laid out, then there's some powers that you can implement to address specific issues for your specific county. All right, let's see how we're doing in time. Okay, I'm going right along here pretty good. You also can determine your own rules and order of business. So how you conduct your meetings, things like public comments, how much time you're going to allow for that, things like that. How you, while you don't have, and I'm going to assume, and I think I'm making a good assumption here, that you all have a good council that works well together. But there are times when, and I know, and unfortunately, where there is a matter that, and maybe another county, so I'm not speaking about your county, but just in general, there may be an issue that comes up that a particular member may be very passionate about, and that's fine and well, because again, you were elected to be able to represent the constituents that elected you, and so you all come with a wealth of different backgrounds, and you see things from different perspectives, and so hopefully collectively that makes for a good product for your county. But there may be times where an individual or so may feel very passionate about something, but unfortunately the rest of council doesn't feel that way, and there are times where that council or group of council members may decide, okay, well, we're going to just kind of hijack the council process, and so how do you deal with that? Well, your rules, you can set up rules and policies in terms of how you address a situation like that. So that's why I share that. Not to say that I'm singling Charleston County out, but just to understand generally that's one of the things that you can do. You do have the authority to hire professionals in order to investigate if there's a matter going on that would require that you can bring in either outside counsel or either whatever you're investigating, whatever expertise you determine needs to be brought in for that purpose to help you along with the investigation. You can do that, and it's also important to remember that when it comes to your relationship with your county employees, which I'll touch back to that a little bit later on. So this is one of those areas, though, that where you as council can get involved is when there's an investigation going on, and so you're trying to gather information to make a determination as to what's going to be best for the county. All right. As council members, you work, and I didn't say this at the beginning, but council operates and moves as a body, not as an individual. And so what that means as a practical level is that you're a council member, but you still have rights as an individual because you're still a citizen of the county. But in your capacity as a council member, you have to operate within the confines of what council as a whole wants. And so I mentioned this particular case here because this was a situation, and unfortunately a lot of case law came out of this initial lawsuit, but essentially what was going on is that a council member in particular was demanding that the administrator provide them with weekly financial reports. The budget before it had been completed or approved. They just wanted special information that they were expecting and demanding from the administrator. Well, certainly the finished product of anything that goes on in the county, as a council member, you're entitled to have that. But you're not entitled to have, as an individual member, to have an administrator give you essentially special treatment. And so that's what this case essentially stood for, that again, they could get this information, but not in the manner and time frame that they were doing, because what it was doing ultimately was affecting the administrator's ability to do their functions that council as a whole had directed them to do. Not that they weren't going to give the information, it's just the time frame that they were asking it in. So again, it's important to remember that you move and work as council as a whole, not as an individual. And as an individual, you don't have the authority to direct the administrator. It's council as a whole. Very, very important. Right along with that, members cannot have direct contact with the county employees. Everything is to be funneled through your administrator. That's what their job is, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, and I understand, even with Charleston being as big a place as it is, you go to church, your children, grandchildren play ball with some of the county employees, and so you have relationships with them outside of the work environment. But anything that pertains to their capacity as an employer, if that's brought to you, you need to direct that back to the administrator or whatever channel they have going through whatever department that they're in, and let that ultimately go back to the administrator. And I mentioned the thing about jail time because, again, we've had situations, we went unfortunately through a string of years where we had a lot of our sheriffs, for whatever reason, getting in trouble with the law. And one in particular served time because they were having inmates and some other folks do work at their personal residence. And so, you just can't do stuff like that. And again, I think everybody in here understands that, but you would have thought that maybe they realized that probably was not a good idea, but unfortunately they didn't. So again, it's very important to understand while you have such a vast responsibility as council, understanding your role in relationship to your administrator that you ultimately hire, and then more importantly, the employees underneath that administrator. And just really the only time you would have any direct contact goes back to what I said earlier about it, is where there's an investigation going on and you may have to call members in as a part of your gathering of information for you all to make an informed decision as to what direction the county needs to take on the particular matter that's going on. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. So we're going to shift now to the administrator, or the CL. And 4-9-630 in our code of law specifically lays out the specific duties of the administrator. As I said, there's 4 forms of county government, and Charleston is chosen to be a council administrative form of government. So you do have an administrator, and this particular statute lays out specifically what duties that administrator has. He's the administrative arm of the county, hires, directs, and disciplines county employees in accordance with that policy that you all have set in place. But ultimately, the hiring and the firing goes back to the administrator. Executes policies and directives and legislative actions that you all have directed him or her or collectively them to carry out. Directs and coordinate operational agencies, administrative activities, prepares the annual budget and capital improvement budgets for submission to you all. And that's done on an annual basis. They may have to do periodic reports, monthly reports, however you and your rules have set up to determine to get information from your administrator. That's what they're responsible for in their role in that capacity. They oversee the funds once it's been appropriated and carried out. They're the person that's responsible. And again, depending on the amount, different counties do it different ways. There may be items that you have given your administrator the ability to carry out this within a certain monetary limit, but anything beyond that needs to come back before us so that we can discuss it and approve it. But again, however you choose to set that up, once you set it up, the administrator carries that out. And again, they administer whatever your personnel policies, and that includes salary and classification plans that, again, you approve and you put together. Or talk about handling employment and discharge. Again, within the employees under their purview. This does not apply to the office of any other elected official. It's only the employees that are directly under the administrative arm. But any of the offices of elected officials, they're completely off limits. But then there's this catch-all after there are the specific duties they perform such other duties as may be required by council. So while 4-9-630 lays out some very specific functions, you as council can determine that there are some additional things that you may want your administrator to do, and that's perfectly fine, again, but that has to be spelled out and so that it's clear to everybody what those functions and roles are. All right, I kind of hit it a couple of times about elected officials, and so, and this is the thing that puts you all, while you're the engine of the county, you also have other aspects to make that vehicle move. Obviously, you know, carrying along with my vehicle analogy, while you may be the engine still needs wheels, needs transmission and some other things in order for that vehicle to be able to move. And so that's where these other elected officials come in. You work in tandem. However, they have their function and you have your function that's laid out. You work together, but you have your individual responsibilities. And I know that there are times where that may run up against each other, and council may have an idea about how something is to go. The elected official that you work with may have a different idea. What do you do in that situation? And the best I tell folks all the time is you have to be able to step back and think, okay, I was elected to do what's best for the county. And sometimes that means putting aside what you personally may think is best or right for the better good of the county. And so I say that to say, because I know that there are counties that have really good working relationships with all of the elected officials, and for that matter with the municipalities as well. And there are others that have some challenges. And the tendency when you have these challenges is to want to step over in a lane that legally you can. Again, you can't do anything with their office, with their employees, and vice versa. And so it behooves, as much as it possible, to keep in mind as you're going through some of those challenges, if and when they may come up, is what is going to be best for the county, and how do we work through this in a way that's going to benefit the county, even if it means I have to pull back on, or we collectively maybe have to do some give and take in terms of what we think is best as we're working with other elected officials. Now, the one thing you do have some control, well, a huge amount of control over is when it comes to the budget for the other elected officials' office, okay? Because ultimately, that comes from council. However, there are caveats to that as well. You can't reduce their budget beyond a certain level, and again, essentially, they got to be able to function, and you can't reduce their salary during an official's term. So, again, what that limit is, again, it's within reason. Obviously, if an office comes before you and their budget is X one year, and the following year, council decides, well, we're just going to slash that by $100,000 for whatever. Well, $100,000, again, depending on the county, depending on office stat, while it's a hit, it may not be as stinging, but in some other counties, that's major money. And so that substantially is going to impact the ability for that elected office to function. So again, kind of think of things in that terms when you're talking and thinking about reducing budget. There's some other things that can be considered, but again, just kind of keep that in mind as you ultimately, you approve the budgets, and you do have some discretion, but it's within those confines of the law that you have to keep in mind. I got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to stop at this point to see if there are any questions. Okay, either I've done a really good job, or y'all have decided you just don't want to talk. But I will say this, I'm going to stick around for a little while afterwards, so if there's some questions that you have, I'd be more than happy to address. I hope that this has been helpful. Thank you all for inviting me down. Okay, we do have one question. Okay.
Question about noise abatement, things like that. We've had a problem with that in my district, that the county's done a great job in, but the part where the problems have been in unincorporated areas. So is that things like noise abatement and other ordinances that we have power to enact only specific to the unincorporated area? That is, we could jump into the city of Charleston's area or Charleston, am I correct in that?
And that is correct, yes. So it would be yes. Any other questions?
One question of your budget discussion that you just engaged us in relative to the other elected officials. Normally, the administrator prepares a budget that also contemplates all of those budgets in that.
Correct.
And so you're now talking about a realm outside of that process, or?
No. What I'm saying is, in that realm, to carry out that scenario, let's say, because in order for the administrator to bring that budget to you, they have to get the request from the various offices. So let's say they come to you with a request for, let's just say, $1 million. Council says, nope, we're only going to give $500,000, something like that. So again, it's within those confines of how it works. But again, once it's brought before you all and you all are considering and going through the process, you obviously make the determination as to whether or not, yes, we will, and the county has the funds in order to make this happen or not. So yes, it's all within the confines as to how things work right now. It's nothing. And I'm sorry if I made that confusing in any way. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all very much. My contact information is here, so feel free to call if there's anything that we can do at the association. We have a really good working relationship with your county and with the administrator, and of course, Natalie and I talk fairly regularly, so we're here to help in any way that we can. So thank you so much for your time.
you. Way to keep us on time already. Next, we have Ms. Salisbury, who is going to give a brief overview of the strategic plan updates.
Okay, here we go. The strategic plan, as you remember, this plan was approved in December of 2023. It became effective in July of 2024, and it goes through FY 2027. It's a 3-year plan. So we just completed year 1. You'll recall that these are the strategic priorities that you all adopted: infrastructure, public well-being, public engagement and communication, financial stability, quality of life, workforce, and ARPA. This year, our key achievements for the plan were utmost. Our goal was 33% of the plan to be accomplished, and we're a little ahead of our goal. We're at 41%. But we also implemented a strategic plan tracking program called Clear Plans. Clear Plans is a live public-facing portal that's on our website. As soon as our staff updates the different achievements that they've made towards those goals, it is automatically published to our website in that moment. Let's see, this is just a screenshot of what it looks like. You'll see it says we're at 41% complete. It talks about our strategies, and it sort of color codes where we are, which ones are complete. We do have some that are not started yet, but we're on a 3-year timeline, so that would be expected. We do have some that have major and minor disruptions, and for your benefit, that's probably where I would look, because those are priorities to you. But we have some disruption that staff has identified. And I'm going to highlight the major disruptions. The first one, of course, is the Mark Clark extension. It was Infrastructure Strategy D. Your priority was for us to assist the SCDOT to secure a record of decision for the Mark Clark. And of course, since we've unwound that contract, we are not going to meet that goal. It will sit at the percent that it is right now, and it will not be a goal that's met. The next one that has a major disruption is the Highway 41 corridor. You all received an update from Alex Oziak a couple of weeks ago regarding the status of Highway 41, and while we're making good forward progress and the permits are coming through as we expect and whatnot, our goal was to have that project completed by the end of FY 27, and the new expected completion date of that is towards the end of calendar year 2029. So that's a major disruption for that project. And then the quality of life, you just heard Kent talk about the legislation that would allow counties to have the same powers that municipalities do. H 4224 was a bill that was introduced in the House to grant counties that similar authority. It died in committee this legislative year. It hasn't been pre-filed yet, so if that's something that's still important to you all, you may want to lobby with your legislators to get a similar bill introduced again. And I know the SCAC has had that as one of their legislative priorities, so continue to network with SCAC as well to let them know that that's still a priority of yours. This is another page that's on our portal. It shows each one of our priorities and where we are in meeting all of those goals. You'll see that we're just about a third the way through all of them. ARPA, of course, is a little ahead of the game at 71% because ARPA is tying up. We've committed all of our money. We're well underway with getting all of those funds distributed and expended. And then this is an example of what the public would see for this strategy. It shows the progress, and then here along this side. I know it's hard for y'all to see, but those are the notes that our staff would make that just say why this is at this goal, this percentage of progress, and what the next steps are. Our upcoming initiatives for this year is that we hope to get staff to clearly identify the milestones for each goal. So when we get to this, we'll be at 25%, and when this is accomplished, we'll be at 50%. And that would just help us if we have staff overturning. One staff member may look at something and say, I think we're at 50%, and then somebody comes in behind them and they're like, oh no, we've got way more than halfway to go on this. And so if we have clearly identified milestones, that would help to make that a less arbitrary kind of figure. We also hope to, as I mentioned, the Clear Plans ties in with our budgeting software, and we hope to be able to tie each one of our line items in the budget, which we call object codes, to a specific priority. So you'll be able to see what percentage of the budget is allocated towards each one of the priorities. That's a heavy lift for our staff to do, because you all know, you've just finished the budget, how many line items we have. And so it's going to take some effort to get all of those line items assigned to a priority, but it's something that we're working towards, and we hope that it'll be done for next year, but maybe not. We're just onboarding a new budget director, and so it may not be something that we're able to achieve next fiscal year. And then, of course, our goal would be to be at 66% completion by the end of FY26. And then I'm happy to take any questions if you have them. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Salisbury, for the updates. My question becomes, how pervasive are these priorities across county directorates? How is this articulated, particularly those priorities and areas and strategies that are directly tied, to areas that people work on every single day?
Sure.
What sort of imperative, do any of these take as it relates to, people's urgency around completing?
I don't want to speak for the DCAs, but I do believe that when they meet one-on-one with their department heads, they do talk about the strategies and the initiatives that they're taking towards the strategic plan. And I believe they all meet with them on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and so it's something that they bring up in their one-on-one meetings. Also, if you'll notice on our yellow sheets that you all vote on, at the bottom of each of the yellow sheets it says, this item is in line with X priority for the strategic plan. So that would be a way for you all to be able to see we are intentional about the things that we do, because we're only asking you to do things that fall in line with what your strategic plan is, and there's not an option on there to choose something that's not in the strategic plan. So there's not a other item on that yellow sheet. So everything that staff is bringing to you to approve is contemplated as an effort towards the strategic plan. Okay. All right. Just set up the next one.
As you are aware, most of today is about council receiving report outs with questions for clarification, but not really discussion. However, this next session regarding the transportation sales tax is really an opportunity for you all to have some input. And Ms. Christy Hall will be facilitating that conversation. But before that kicks off, we have Ryan Brown and Rick Silver from Chernoff Newman here to introduce themselves.
Thank you. I'm Ryan Brown. This is my colleague Rick Silver from Chernoff Newman. We're a strategic communications firm with offices here in Charleston. Rick and I are based out of Columbia, and then we've got offices throughout the Southeast. We're just very briefly and at a very high level going to walk you through the really important work that you, tail end of last month, entrusted us with doing and working with you on your behalf related to the transportation sales tax program. And really, we're boiling that down into 3 key goals that you see here on the screen. And that's first, building trust and confidence in the existing program. And that entails delivering transparent, accessible, fact-based information about the investments already made and their impacts. And then as you look towards the future, which is what Secretary Hall is going to get into in just a minute, really being prepared and ensuring if you do decide to take another referendum or whatever it is in the future, ensuring that every citizen and taxpayer feels informed, respected, and heard throughout that process. So we're the new kid on the block, so we don't know what we don't know. So I'll say that caveat, but based off of, we've done this work in other areas across the state, throughout the Southeast, and based off what we've observed and doing that work and also just preliminary meetings with the staff here in Charleston, we've outlined kind of a 2-phased approach. And I'm going to talk more about phase 1, and we'll really be relying on you should the time come for phase 2. Phase 1 is really both phases are built on transparency, engagement, and readiness for whatever comes next. That first phase is about building trust and improving awareness of the existing transportation sales tax program. So that's working alongside you, county staff, community leaders, many of you here in this room, to document and communicate past achievements, current impacts in a way that's easy and accessible to understand. So telling the story, essentially, of what's been accomplished, how that funding's been used, from road improvements to sidewalks and green space projects, congestion that's been alleviated, and how communities have become safer and more connected overall. So how do we do that? That'll be working with our friends in news media. It'll be standing up a website, communicating on social media. It'll be face-to-face and online in town halls, and really empowering community members and community partners in helping to tell the story. So through a really grassroots approach. And we also want to open up a clear dialogue with the community where they can ask questions, feel heard, and feel that they're really part of the process and not just observers of it. So really that open dialogue between the county government, and its constituencies. So that's phase 1, very high level in a nutshell. Phase 2 is really only happen if you deem it necessary. So if you choose to place a new referendum on the ballot, or whatever it may be, we'll be assisting you throughout that process. And that really, the goal of that is to ensure that you have an informed electorate and that they are part of the process. Deciding what projects are going to be funded, understanding how they're going to be funded, timelines, areas, maps, and making sure that whether you're here in West Ashley or North Charleston or Mount Pleasant, that everyone feels that they've had a voice in what they will ultimately be voting on, and that they've had that back and forth dialogue to understand and have input in that process. And I think one thing, because it is a vote and there's always some concern about lobbying or PR being involved, everything that we do in that phase is governed under Ethics Act. We work very closely, whether it be your county's attorney or with the Ethics Commission themselves, to make sure that that information is well above board. I think overall what we want to get out of this, want the public to get out of this, is that they're involved in the process. They're not just observers of it. So that when when we're meeting with the public, that we don't feel that we're just talking to them, but we're having this back and forth, and that ultimately when the decisions are made, that they feel that they have a vested interest in it. And that really, from day one until whatever comes next, will be the transparent, open dialogue model that we'll be following. We know how important this work is. We know how difficult it is. We've had success doing it in other areas of the state and other areas of the country, and we're just really appreciative of the opportunity that you've given us and the opportunity for us to serve this community alongside you. So with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions. As I mentioned, we're starting to meet with the staff next week, really roll up our sleeves and dig into this, and we'll certainly be working with council members and community leaders throughout the process. So thank you again. No questions? I got out of here without anything. Perfect. Yes, sir.
You use the word trust
Trust.
often,
Yes.
but I see it as a different approach. For many, many years, sales tax, we have done what we said we were going to do. But we've had a few people writing op-eds in the newspaper, giving bad information, and that's what turned the public or the taxpayer to say you can't be trusted. And now the very same people are coming back saying, well, we want to help y'all, we want to win the trust. To me, it was never a broken trust. It was a PR campaign, the Stop 526, which was done. But if you look at what we've done in the Florida County website from the first 2016 half-penny sales tax, we have done exactly what we said we would do. But I said it in a public meeting, we did a poor job of letting the county know, the taxpayers know what we've done and what we're still doing. And so it's going to be hard to go back and try to sell these same people something that you told was no good from the beginning, but now you want to come in on the back end and say, oh no, I know better, trust me. So, I hope y'all will be able to do that, but it was never about trust, it was about, these folks doing these op-eds in the paper, or these certain groups wanting to start 526.
Sure. And I think probably maybe a word for what you're describing is misinformation, and that's certainly something whether we're talking about the existing program or a potential new one is something we'll have to combat along the way. But I think when we talk about trust, particularly with this first kind of phase where we'll be working with the staff and you to take a really holistic look at what has been accomplished, what these funds have been used for in the aggregate. I think that is how we reset and reestablish that trust. And maybe, as you said, it's never been lost, but there's certainly some people who, whether they're longtime residents or they've just moved here, they don't know what they don't know. And so we've got to put that together in a way that's easy for them to understand, that's clear, that's transparent, that's not biased, so that they can easily consume that, because they're not going to. If you don't understand how the money's been used currently, then you certainly aren't going to trust or believe in how it may be used in the future. So this kind of phase one, I think, kind of gets at the heart of what you're pointing out is an issue, because I, personally speaking, not for Chernoff Newman, I don't think that you can get to anything new before you really show the public what their funds have been used for to date.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Pryor, very well said. You call misinformation, I call lies, stand lies. I think education of the public is key, because when a project like Glen McConnell takes 7 years to get done because of the ridiculous amount of regulations and blue tape and all that garbage, they just don't, when the people tell the public that only one of how many every project's been done, they don't tell them that, well, every other project is in process. And we would rely on somebody like you to say, the money is being spent as it said it was. The construction takes 20 months. The nonsense takes 5.5 years. That's the lie. That's the education that's got to be corrected. But I have a question for you. I didn't have an answer from Mr. Pryor, but if this county goes forward with another sales tax in 26 and it fails, how long does the county need to wait before it goes back? I'm not holding you to
I don't know that. I don't know that I can give you an answer for that. I do, one
It's a
thing.
long time.
Yeah. One thing I would say, though, is when this expires, your current one expires, it will be a lot tougher to then place a new tax back on the residents. That's how I'll answer that. It becomes much more difficult, certainly when you're not doing a continuation with something new.
I agree, because then it's a tax increase versus
Correct.
continuation.
That's exactly.
But unringing the bell of the lies that we're told is going to be a tall task for you and staff.
By the way, that's exactly what we mean when we say trust. And in responding to what you said, we're not saying in any way that y'all did anything to breach trust, that y'all did anything untrustworthy. But as you said, it was a campaign that targeted trust. And it was effective in that way, whether righteous or not, or totally honest or not, it doesn't matter. And part of it not mattering is that's where we start from today. And the premise we bring is that's what we have to find reasons, communications, tactics to begin to bridge and rebuild that, because we believe you can't build the first road until we build back trust.
And also-
And that's the whole basis.
And also as it relates to us, right? Because
Yes.
we are leaders in this effort. And so we have to also uniform our own language and build bridges of trust among one another. I mean, there were people who are on this very same council that felt one way in 2024 and they feel a different way now, or whatever the case is. It will be a new tax if we wait beyond 2026, so that's different. And so we would have to talk about that as well. So when looking at our own ability to wrap our minds around anything that's going to happen sooner or later, it still requires us having open dialogues with one another, trusting each other around this table to hear, right? Because I mean, you know, nobody has the same feeling or the same opinion, but hearing those things and seeing that we're coming from the best place enough to know that if we take this step, we have to take this step together. It is in the best interest of the entire county. And so that becomes really the big task.
Yes, sir. And we can't get the trust back for you. Only you can do that. But if you agree to the plan and the thing, we have a lot of work to do together to get it back.
We are not laying that at your doorstep. Some of that belongs to us.
Yes, sir.
Some of it does.
I just wanted to say, as part of the messaging and communication, we need to let the public understand that they can vote no. But when they do vote no, that's the end of it. CART is done, Greenbelt is done, and there won't be any new roads built by the county without the funding. That's where it comes from. The state's not going to come rescue us.
This is very, very, very premature. But I'm really going to still like getting into this part of it. But as we realize it in Richmond for this year too, as important about whatever plan you devise, if in fact you devise a plan, we're not presuming that either, devise a plan to put on the ballot, it is absolutely as important to determine and do the analysis on what will happen if it doesn't pass as you look at your future, as when you build your future with it passing. That's a terribly important ingredient, and so you're absolutely right on that.
I guess I want to follow up by saying, there's no point in having a 2026 referendum if the public doesn't want it. And so you guys will do polling and surveys to get the pulse of the public. And if it's not there and they don't want it, then there's no point in pushing it forward.
To a large degree, not an absolute degree, it's not that an end-election campaign doesn't matter by third parties, et cetera, and support, et cetera. A lot of it will be determined. You'll mostly have it won or lost by the time you get to what the process you get to and whatever package you then put on the table when you put it on the table.
And I'll wrap up one further thing. One of the things I've been pushing for is to get some type of web platform similar to the Virginia Department of Transportation to do just what everybody's wanting to point out. Show what we've done, make it interactive and user-friendly for the public to go in and get into the weeds of this. They can see every dollar, every timeline, show where these funds have gone.
That's
Part of the plan, in fact, one of the very first steps of the first phase of the plan may be next week when we roll up the sleeves with your staff. But as much as getting it in the weeds, we also think it needs to be made simple. a real easy SSF where you don't need to be an engineer. You know? And those are the two things that we think have to happen, and that's absolutely one of the first priorities and first steps. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have a conversation being facilitated by Secretary Christy Hall.
Former Secretary.
Once a secretary.
Secretary Emeritus. Thank you so much. Members of Council, Charleston County residents and others, thank you so much for the invitation to be here today to help facilitate this discussion. And I'm not sure I can do this. Uh-oh. Really messed up. I'll just hold it. Thanks so much for the invitation. Chairman, I enjoyed our conversation that we had recently when we talked about, how do you start with really kind of a blank slate, so to speak. How do you get to a successful program at the end of the day? And so I shared with him some of the history that I had at the South Carolina DOT, where we basically went from an organization that really, we had plans, but we didn't really have what I would call an aligned, strategic focus on what we were trying to produce. Or said differently, what we were planning to return, what that rate of return or return on investment was going to be to the taxpayers for the funds that were being entrusted to DOT. So what I'd like to do today is sort of thinking back to how we got to where we did at the state level, maybe share that same conversation with you all in an interactive way, and let's just see if we could start some initial discussions on what a potential framework for a possible future program would look like. So this is intended to be very interactive with you. Of course, I have a lot of personal opinions on a lot of this information, but what I really want to do is to hear from you all, because at the end of the day, it'll be your decision as to what you do. So we talk about a framework. Why do you need a framework? What is the purpose of a framework? Well, the framework basically, I kind of call it like the guardrails for the staff to understand really where it is council is looking to go, what types of things that council is interested in, really kind of help in some of the work that Mr. Mitchum and others are doing with some data analytics for you. They really need some information to be able to analyze or better, more effectively slice and dice the data to produce things that produce meaningful projects for you at the end of the day when it comes to potential project list. It's just the amount of data that's available, the types of data, it's enormous. And it's hard to even comprehend some of the things and technologies that Ron and team have that looks at infrastructure and transportation. But without some sort of guidance, you're really just sort of guessing, right, at what's important. So hopefully the purpose of this conversation today is to really start that initial conversation towards what a future program potentially could look like at a macro level. We're not talking projects, not project specific, but at a macro or strategic level. So many of y'all probably know the 7 habits. It's something I leaned on when I was an agency head, and one of the things that always stuck in my mind was to always begin with the end in mind. And so that's really kind of the theme here today, is begin with the end in mind. So with regards to potential future transportation sales tax program, what do you envision accomplishing strategically? In other words, what's the purpose in having a program? And this is the interactive part with council. So what is the purpose? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm happy to speak to it because I came to county council with infrastructure first and foremost on my mind. And what I realized is the county is limited in what it needs to be delivering. And so now I'm thinking with the end in mind, what I want to see is making, as a priority, our roads safer. So starting with scale, it's a county effort, because there are some things that I really do think are beyond what the county should be expected to do.
That's a great observation point. Anybody else?
Talking too much, maybe I am, Secretary Hall, thank you for being here. I would agree with Seneca. I think safety first and foremost has to be, but I would add quality of life to that. In my district, Councilman Boykin's district, quality of life is terrible because we just don't have the infrastructure to move around. So that would be my number 2.
So let's talk about quality of life. Are you referring to like delays sitting in traffic, or are you talking about like bike ped connectivity?
I'm talking about traffic. That's I have a very 83% of my constituents leave my area to go to work daily at 7:30, and then they come back at 5. So there's your traffic problem. So capacity equals, to me, equals quality of life.
The commuting portion of it.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, that's good. What else?
Also tie land use to some extent, some of this as it relates to quality of life, looking at conserving. Everything can't be filled, and certainly you can't have roads everywhere. And so when looking at our green spaces, how can those also be conserved or preserved in such ways that adds to the quality of life of individuals, again, like bed, opportunities for people to walk and or bike or ride, to developments that have been strategically, placed in places where they don't have to then get in a car and go, in order to enjoy some of those things. So, again, we've had a very successful green belt program, but at the same token, without these types of opportunities, even that, becomes something that may or may not continue.
Excellent.
Well, if we're just going for it here, I would say, I agree with some of what's been said. I mean, certainly transit is going to be my main priority. Not necessarily saying it needs to be the biggest piece of the pie, but making sure that that's a significant part of our future. Just looking at, these things go on for 25 years. So, I've looked at the COGS long-range plans, and there's thoughts of other arms of rapid transit. That's never going to happen if it's not part of this. This is the only source of funding for that. Setting aside the idea that, call it regular service, we constantly get people wanting, new bus line here, more frequent bus line there. So, and there's some plans, I know Mr. Mitchell can speak to it, but there's some plans to do that in the sense that, they have the paperwork done to move forward with, they've planned it out, and some of them, we just don't have the funding to do a lot of that right now. So, I think one of the big lessons I've taken from inflation and watching these road projects and environmental reviews is just, it's going to be super expensive. I think the scale point that Councilman Honeycutt made is a good one. But part of my lesson from that is we need to start investing in other means. And, I understand it's a road-dependent area. That's always going to be the biggest chunk of the pie, as I like to say, but I do think making that section that goes to public transit a more legitimate alternative, because it's not a legitimate alternative in a lot of areas of the county. Basically, Rivers Avenue, you can use it. There's a few others, but I think having a really reliable, frequent service in other areas, maybe that's not even, a big part of folks' lives right now, but I think in 10 years, there's going to be a lot of areas that could benefit from that significantly. I think we got to take that into account now.
All right, that's some fantastic input from you all, and this kind of leads us into this next portion, which I think you guys basically hit all these areas. Really, in the past, your program, if you look at it in sort of broad terms, it falls into road work, transit, bike ped, and green belt projects. And it sounds like that still is the desired, really, 4 strategic investment areas from what I'm hearing here from council, at least on an initial conversation point. Let's dig just a little bit into those specific areas and make sure when we're talking roadways that it is, I guess your desire is to improve, you talked about the operation, dealing with congestion. How about the condition of the roadway, your paving program, keep that going?
Keep that going, and along with that, because I was in your district, your district's, Councilman Panicata and Ms. Boykin, and, some roads are being washed away, based on, just flood and that sort of thing. And as it relates to being able to kind of fix some of that, these drainage, kind of issues, we have not been able to do that as well because we haven't had a source of funding to do that when we're touching the roads and improving the conditions. I would think that that also has to factor in there somewhere.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. One of the things that I think is a particular concern is that we're always reacting to a problem. We're reacting to a traffic problem or some congestion or some safety problem. And by the fact that we're reacting to some, it's we're having to deal with the existing infrastructure that's there. You've got a road, you've got properties on either side of the road, you've got drainage, and you've got utilities, and all those things have to figure into the process. And that's what makes the road project so long from when you started till we start moving any dirt. Because they have to figure out where all the utilities are, how the drainage is going to be affected, how the new improved plan is going to affect drainage. Well, we won't get to base one if that isn't done. And so all of this adds up to make this a lot more difficult process and a lot more expensive process.
Agreed, 100%. Road work is not inexpensive, it's very expensive.
Good afternoon, Secretary Hall. Thank you for coming and joining us today. Thank you for everything you've done to help us so far. One thing I want to bring up, I have a very rural district. I want us to also look at opportunities where, rather than widening roads, we look at intersection improvements. Oftentimes, it's the intersections that cause the congestion rather than the capacity of 2 lanes. John's always nothing more evident than that. And so I'd like to see us look at ways to study these roads and look at what types of intersections. I'm a big fan of roundabouts, obviously. They work all the time to prevent the high-speed collisions. So there may be a way to stretch our dollars. We can look at problems and maybe we can solve them with less expensive infrastructure improvements that may be more bang for the buck.
Excellent.
And just to answer the last question about whether there's any macro level changes to these, I think the statute was changed this year, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that actually adds housing as an element of one of the factors of how these TST dollars can be spent. And one of the things to tie into what Reverend Middleton was saying is as we identify areas where housing is appropriate, because we all know we have housing issues here, tying that into the infrastructure design and discussion, I think, is important on a macro level. If those resources are going to be available to invest in those areas where we're also investing in the infrastructure or the transit, then we need to keep that in mind on a macro level. And I would say, I think I saw in today's paper or yesterday that, there's increased water costs coming along with the BRT, and all of these things have consequences down the line, and trying to keep all of that in focus as we move forward and keeping the public educated on the reasons we're making these changes to build capacity is certainly important.
All that sounds good, but you can't get to B and C until you get to A. Okay, all that is going to take money to get all this stuff we talked about that. So if we don't get B and C, it's about doing something about A, which is passing a referendum in 2026. We just spinning our wheels and ain't going nowhere because it's going to take funding to get all this done. It's obviously the state is not going to do it. Even though they went out with the gasoline taxes, I think it was like 6 cents, and everybody that paid the money is supposed to come back. The different municipalities or counties. What are we doing with that? Where is the money going? The county taxpayers are being taxed twice. They're paying the gas tank, and now we want to say extend the gasoline or the sales tax to pay for all that. So I agree with everything that's been said, but none of this is going to go anywhere until you pass it.
let's dive a little bit deeper into that roadway element. Councilman Boykin was heading down this path, and I think let's talk about from what it is that you want to accomplish. So with safety projects, it's real easy to say we want a bunch of safety projects. Well, there's so many different types of safety issues out in the roadway network across the region and county and state and even the U.S. So your safety projects, what do you specifically want to target with those? I heard our worst crash locations. Anything else does anything else come to mind for you? Or is that pretty much the main focus? Yes, sir.
I'd add pedestrian safety if that's not included in the crash. It's a crash, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a big problem in a lot of areas. And again, to the extent that you can improve safety, then maybe you can facilitate folks. I don't know how much effect that would have on congestion, but it will safety folks feel walking more likely to walk. So maybe there's some knock-on effect there. But primarily, I do think we've got areas in the county that is aware of that have pedestrian safety issues as well.
Right.
Secretary, in my district, DOT recently rolled out some plans for Sanders Boulevard that it's called a little bit like a camera over the head. There were some good ideas, it almost turned it into Highway 17 in Mount Pleasant. And as you're well aware, there's a lot of small businesses up and down Sanders Boulevard, so it did not go over well. I could see spaces, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Maybe where you have those kind of island type things to keep capacity moving, but also you don't cut off access to be able to turn into emergency or suicide, whatever you're going to call it, the middle lane to be able to access business on the other side. Because if we do something like that, the business owners are going to scream bloody murder. So there's a balance to be had there between access to business, yet keeping capacity and quality of life going. So not an answer for today, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay. I'd be glad to have that conversation. Okay, how about your annual pavement improvement program? I saw in your strategic plan, I'm sorry, Ms. Honeycutt.
No, I was going to speak to that, and I just want to, this is an area where I think our staff deserves incredible praise. They're one of the most successful pavement programs in the country. We document it, the public can see it being done, we focus on areas, we use the most sophisticated technology to identify and prioritize which roads need to be done. So my only statement about this one is that we got to keep it going. We got to have some funds to do that, prior to doing. But we do an excellent job in this area. So.
Excellent. Is that an area you think you'd want to see more investment relative to other things?
Everybody wants their roads repaved.
Absolutely. When you talk roads, that's what most people think, right? It's pavements. Okay. Intersection improvements. I heard you guys loud and clear on that. You're really kind of looking for maybe faster moving, smaller type intersection projects, not necessarily gigantic interchange projects or things like that. Is that?
And also contemplating the signalization of the lights, because sometimes looking at that technology could improve.
Right, technology, leveraging technology. Yes, sir.
Secretary, another area that we should look at is we've got here at SCDOT roads, they were built a long time ago and weren't ever expected to handle the capacity that they do today. We have areas, we have huge open ditches, where tractor trailers can go into and and school buses and everything else. We'd like to address some of those rural country roads that are now serving as major thoroughfares to make them safer, whether it's guardrails or piping and covering, creating a shoulder. Also, we've got a lot of dimly lit or dark curves and stuff on these rural roads, more signage with reflective arrows and other things that bring others' attention that entering a curve that can be hazardous. So those kind of safety upgrades as well.
So like a rural road safety program?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Tracking. That's good. Okay, and when it comes to like your big widening projects, how do you envision those being identified as needs? Obviously, there'll be a robust public engagement portion of it. And then Mr. Mitchum has plenty of models that can be run, and he showed you at your council meeting, some of the congested corridors along those lines, but how do you envision sort of identifying the 3-lane, 4-lane, 5-lane projects? Is that something you basically want the team to
I think the
run some models
modeling
on?
data certainly would give as many of us sitting at dinner meetings. So I mean, just by virtue of who we feel, that's one thing, but certainly the data.
I would offer up a ground ball on this one. US Highway 17, Savannah Highway widened to 6 lanes from Highway 162 all the way to Dobbin Road. The bridges were already built wide enough for the additional lanes, so that's the cost savings right off the bat. The new interchange with Main Road 17 is being set, so those roads can be widened there as well. So that's an easy one right there, more capacity for that section. Additional development in West Ashley down in District 6, all the parks and stuff, East Ferry Road ties into it. We know that's going to be a problem, it already is, and so that would actually enhance the improvements we're doing between the 17 interchange.
Dorchester Road, Dorchester Road, Dorchester Road. That's my biggest priority. We can promise some folks we're going to do things, and it's even getting worse now. The front end of the car is being taken out because of the pits and the holes in the roads, but the widening, I mean, I know the Air Force Base plays a key point in some of this, but I would like to see us widen it up to the Air Force Base, and after we pass, until we can make some type of arrangement with the base, because the traffic is just sitting there. I mean, Dorchester was a parking lot from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till at least 7 o'clock, p.m. that night. And so I never knew it was that bad until I started traveling there on a daily basis. So in the morning and in the afternoons, and the signalization, like the chairman said, we have to do something with those signalizations, especially around Mission Park. So Dorchester Road, Dorchester Road, Dorchester Road.
And I appreciate those. I feel like the data really is clear on where they'd be needed the most. What I want to know, and I won't speak for him since he's not here, Mr. Kowalski has brought perspective that the more I look at what's we've done and what have been our priorities, the more I start to wonder. So we've really widened out Highway 17 in Mount Pleasant. I feel like as far as we can widen it, I mean, widen every chance we can get, more and more and more got built out. My constituents would be really upset if I didn't say widen Maybank between River Road and the bridge and make that the 4 lanes that they intended for it to be. But also making sure we're really looking at every way to capitalize on the existing infrastructure and making it more efficient. Because I feel like we've made some decisions because of limitations, whether it be municipal consent that was withheld or whatever. Like Maybank Highway is a great example. When the city came in and shut the project down and we sent money back to federal government and we had the opportunity, and now it's much harder because for whatever reason setbacks were tightened and things were built right on the roadway. But just making sure, is widening in some of these areas the best option? Absolutely. Are there other options as well, and particularly along that Maybank corridor? And I share some of it with Mr. Boykin. I mean, really, the areas of Maybank Highway that are in my district were never intended to carry the full capacity of the entirety of Johns Island, and yet that's the burden put on them because of the lack of infrastructure. So I definitely think there's areas that need widening, but we definitely need to look at all the alternatives as well.
I agree 1,000% with that.
If I can follow up with those comments.
All right, we'll very good. Well, I'm didn't to butt in here. I would agree with a lot. Certainly making sure we get the most out of the capacity that we can with the current roadways. I mean, I certainly don't want us to say something that might be a little controversial, and I don't want us to make this a popularity contest. I told our staff that last time. I said, obviously we need public engagement. I don't want it to be completely driven by that because, some areas aren't as engaged as others and that sort of thing. So it seemed like, you don't want it to just literally be a who shows up at the meeting type thing. But I do think we need to understand that if it's done purely on data and, there's some area that's not going to projects in their area and they're not going to use any of this stuff, that can be a problem when you come to the time for folks to vote for it. So, I'm not saying that it should be a political thing. I think, we need to certainly start with the data, but I do think we need to make sure that there's some level of equity for, the various areas of the county, because I think that will come back to bite us if we don't. Also, while we're mentioning projects, this might be, I sometimes even think this is a transit project, but it is a road project. I don't know how much widening is even involved. But the Durant Overpass, certainly in terms of dollars, is a major, dollar project, and would be remiss if I did not mention that one for all the folks in my area and Mr. Darby's as well.
I just wanted to follow real quick on the widening of Maybank Highway. We actually have that almost in the final design. We've got an estimated price of about $7.5 million to get that fourth lane done. So as soon as we get the final go ahead from the city, I want to bring that for consideration. That's going to be long in the tooth, and it needs to get done. So if we don't get it done with residual funds we have in hand now, it definitely needs to be part of the sales tax.
And to Mr. Worland's point about equity, some of the modeling and data that was presented, particularly based on where new subdivisions and areas of rural are now, you would be surprised that it is more equitable and more distributed, because areas that weren't in play 5-10 years ago are already in place.
Okay, fantastic. Let's touch on transit now. The same thing. Your transit program's an excellent program here. Mr. Mitchum's here. He's the executive director over CARTA. And so with regards to your transit investments, do you see really any changes there? And what about the Low Country Rapid Transit, still of support of investing there? And what else would you like to see?
Well, I thank Mr. Chairman for preemptively sending the mic this way. I mean, yes, and yes, from my end at least. Certainly, I think that the Low Country Rapid Transit project, I know that we contemplated, sort of supportive infrastructure projects around it, also operational support, during the duration of the tax. I think that needs to be a part of it. I don't have all the answers here, but again, I would say that, the idea that this rapid transit, or frankly any transit, is going to be a part of the real solution to congestion and mobility in our area, we are not going to have other opportunities to expand the role of transit other than through the referendum. I mean, that just is the fact. There's no other way of doing it. And so I want us to look really hard at, maybe some big ideas like taking on another arm of rapid transit if we see an area in the county that can benefit from it. Or even, and/or frankly, some substantial increases to the operational budget of CARTA for, the regular bus services that we have, which could certainly be expanded in many areas as well. So I don't have super specific plans on that. Whenever we bring this up, I always mention the long-term study that the COG has done, that might be 7 years old by now. It talks about rapid transit
say, and I'll kind of start high level, that this is becoming, I think, a generational thing. I think for the younger generation that has seen how transit can work in certain areas, there is a little bit more of an open-mindedness. And this is where county government starts to lose its party lines. I am a huge supporter of transit and a huge supporter of the rapid transit as a major component. Obviously, a lot is going to depend on the success of this program in order to continue. But there, and I'm going to get a little outside the box here, there is a huge infrastructure resource that we don't utilize at all right now. And it used to be the primary source of transportation, and that's our waterways. I would love to see our transit system, and this has been in the plan for a really long time, sitting on the shelf somewhere in the back, but I would love to see an operational ferry system that really worked. There's plenty of places in the country that, I mean, there's places out in Seattle that are very effective. There's places around the world that are effective. I would love to see the COG re-engage in that. There are a lot of public sites now where you can ferry up. The Dana Island Ferry has been a really great example of, oh wow, this does work. People will use it. And so I'd like to see that as part of the conceptual future of our transit program. But like some of my other council members, I mean, my area, my district is more focused on individual car riders. And I'm like 4 or 5 miles from my office. I would bike to work if it were safe. But I have to go down Harvard View Road, and it's just not made for people on a bike, especially certain parts of it. So I would love to see the investment in transit, especially to the extent we can get this program successfully operational in the next 6 years or so, grow, and we need, again, funds from the program to do it.
Fantastic. You guys are just awesome dialogue on the whole transit and all the other areas. Let's touch on bike ped for just a second. And I think you guys have already talked about you want bike ped, you want safety projects that speak specifically to bike ped. And you do have an annual bike ped program that the municipal governments submit projects for. I assume that you would envision something like that potentially continuing. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you would want to see targeted with a bike ped program? And I guess when we talk safety, we're talking known areas of issues, safety issues.
I got a few, and I'll just start with James Island and Salt Lake Road. That's been a project that's languishing, it's getting out for design now, planning on piping it and doing it in the right way. Another one is the sidewalk continuing from the low-income housing on Johns Island near Maine and Maybank all the way up to St. John's High School and over to Angel Oak Elementary. I'm sure there's probably some more sidewalks in the needed for the new Johns Island Elementary School for connectivity. So anyway, we've got kids that are going to be walking or biking to school. So we've got a lot of areas like that right throughout the county that can use some pedestrian infrastructure.
Right, and I think your annual program is able to get some of those emerging issues fairly successfully.
And also, this is an area the county and Charleston City have really partnered on James Island. We've gotten a lot done in the last few years to connect the connectivity. Mm-hmm. So in addition to the bike and ped safety, creating those connected paths, because just like connecting the county park to Folly Road and coming back around to Maybank, if it's not connected, part of the way becomes unsafe. So just like traveling down Central Park to get to the county park. So I think connectivity is an important element of this, and also, maybe even a bigger investment so that municipalities do have the resources to get into those areas, because these are very popular with constituents. Most come out and are very supportive when they hear that, oh, we're going to get a sidewalk, oh, we're going to get a widened or enhanced sidewalk that will allow for more than just, the 4-foot ones that we have around some of that.
Right. So kind of closing gaps, identifying gaps.
Yeah, well, I would maybe take that a bit further. Over my district, there's on Wapoo Road, there's a project that sidewalk that's
regards to Greenbelt program, that's been very successful as well. Going forward, I'm assuming you would plan to continue that, and any revisions, any changes, any particular strategic investment you'd want to make? Not project specific, but just sort of big picture.
Well, obviously, land conservation and green space are the top, right there along with public access and parks and everything. I think we've done an excellent job.
Absolutely.
The stewardship of that program, I think it's a poster child for the country. We need to keep it funded and well-funded. That percentage needs to be determined based on see what our needs are, but it needs to be very much robust. And, we've got a lot more to do. And again, anything that's built doesn't get unbuilt.
And I've heard you all talk about using Greenbelt funds to really kind of help manage emerging congestion issues. So that's a wonderful tool. All right, so Councilman Boykin started going down this path just then, talking about the investment shares. I'm not looking for answers as far as percentages or dollars or anything like that, but just kind of order of magnitude or scale. This is a rough pie chart of, I guess, sort of an impression of the investment so far and where it's been. A little more than half on roadways, an investment in transit, investment in bike ped, and investment in Greenbelt. So kind of what I've heard from you all is potential more investment in pavements. Let's kind of zero in on some lower cost, more effective intersection and corridor type things, leveraging technology. Transit's a very important element of this, and the Greenbelt program, as well as bike ped. So sounds like this chart can obviously evolve over time as you start getting into specifics and doing your trade-off analysis of where to push more funds or less funds when you're making those decisions at a future date. But just wanted to put this in front of you to kind of get the conversation started along those lines. Okay, so our good friends with Chernoff Newman were talking earlier about processes and how important the process is with regards to development of the program, and you all were talking about how important it is to talk about or to look at the processes within the program kind of once you get going to make sure you're being efficient and effective delivery of the program. So are there certain processes that you want to make sure get incorporated into kind of the development that staff's going to be working on going forward? Obviously, public engagement, the communication portion. Are there other things that come to your mind that you want to make sure gets looked at as a team starts doing their staff work? Just listening to you earlier, I heard things take too long. Number one, we need to celebrate our successes at the county level with the delivery of certain things. We want to make sure there's some equity looked at with regards to the program.
I guess one thing that's obvious is we need to make sure we fund and we get these projects up and running rather than doing the pay-as-you-go method. I think that's a lot of part of the problem. Why does it take so long? It's never going to get built. I think we need, whatever plan we do, we need to go ahead and add in the financial cost of borrowing the money and carrying the debt service into this. And so we need, some of these projects we need to move on. And we might not be able to accomplish as much in the long run, but I think the public needs to see these projects talk about that.
And I mean, this is obviously not an original thought, but I mean, it's been in the paper a few times, and there's other people that have said it. So to whomever the credit is due is to them. But I do think it is important that we put the projects we want and the amounts we think they're going to cost and exactly when we hope to have them done. Now, I understand most of that is all estimate, but I think some of the things we've learned in the process is people want to see exactly so that they can measure against exactly what it was they voted for. Did you deliver this? And I'll go back to the first thing I said. I just don't think that the county should be doing projects in excess of, X amount of dollars. I don't know for its roadways and its efficiency of its network up to a certain point. But again, we're usually talking about state roads, and so I think we need to focus on very discrete projects that we can get accomplished within a certain amount of time at a very targeted amount. And again, to Mr. Boykin's part, we can go ahead and start funding when the funds immediately become available.
I forgot what I was going to say. No, because those were great points. I think tying our hands to the mast on the projects is a good idea. I think, and yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. I think days ago was, I don't want to be too critical of the idea, I understand it, but I've become convinced, like, I think it's just what it has. The interest is worth it and what you get in terms of time and in terms of being able to deliver quicker.
I also feel that when we identify the project, when the program is passed, or whatever the case is, that there needs to be some public way of individuals who are passing by that site, knowing that, hey, the county is doing this through not necessarily a huge overarching billboard, but something that's recognizable that is the county, that when people, if you're just riding your bicycle past it, if you're driving past it, when you see that sign, you know that this is a county project, and this is part of your asset sales tax. I think void of that, people don't know who's doing these projects, and therefore they don't associate some of those things with us.
Excellent.
One last thing I want to say to this is, I think we made a mistake not putting these projects one by one on the ballot that the voters had in hand. List of cost, projection, priority, how you want to do it. They can see materially what they're voting for. It was in our ordinance, but it was not on the ballot, and most people are getting around looking what's in our ordinance. That way, that information, when the ballot is finalized, it can be in the paper, it can be out there on the internet. People can have lots of time to review it, ask questions, and be informed.
All right, excellent. All right, so the last thing is, how do you define a successful transportation sales tax program?
I think all of the things that were said, I mean, in aggregate of all of the things that each council person has already articulated, definitely projects that actually are completed. I mean, that is the success. When we identify it, and it's not going to take 30, 50, 100 years, we're going to be dead and gone, and we'll not see it in our own lifetimes. We can, from start to finish, based on the length of that sales tax that the project has been completed.
I also want to just be clear, because I do think this, was part of the misinformation, that our current program is actually very successful. Our first program has delivered almost everything that was on the ballot. And so, how do you define it? Well, really, it's putting together the information that Turnoff Newman just said they were going to do about our existing program, because that program has been very successful. I think if the question here is, how do we get to a future program that incorporates all of these new things we're discussing, I think that's where we bring on the professionals to help us engage with the public to get to that successful referendum. But if the question here is simply, how do we have a successful program? I mean, I think ours is a model of success in many ways. I do think that the current program, the one that's the second constant sales tax, got slowed down by a lot of things, which caused a lot of questions in voters' minds that a lot of groups exploited to spread some misinformation about our program. But we are still, as Mr. Moody said, we're on task with those projects. It's just taken much longer with some of the red tape and COVID delays and all the different things that have happened since then, and paying as we go. So.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, I guess I wanted to see on the next steps, really, sort of what we see happening is the team going back and taking your input and really kind of starting that initial staff work to further work up some of the framework for your future consideration, as well as to help Mr. Mitchum, who's teed up right after me, to talk about a little bit on the data analytics that are available.
Secretary Hall, I know you're right there in your part, and certainly when we're talking about next step as it relates to council, I would like for us to really think about next steps, because as it relates to like next Thursday, because at some point, if then we are going to make a decision for another transportation sales tax for 2026, if that's going to be the date that we do that, August is next month. And so it'll be a year between August to next August that we would have to have that referendum question drafted, ready to go, and all the things that would also be a part of that. And certainly it would help, for all the engagement that we're talking about and the consultants that we're bringing on with those next steps, for them to have a clear timeline as to how they can work and how they can work quickly, and at the same time how we can engage our public in ways that build that trust, educate them, make them aware, so that when they get to the ballot box in next November, they will be fully able, to make that decision. But we have to make a decision soon and not drag our feet on, because if not, we're going to miss a critical window. And so literally next Thursday when we have our committee meetings, I think we're going to have to re-engage our conversations on this to make a decision as to what we're going to do, either 2026 or beyond. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Ron Mitchum from the BCD COG. I think you can hold on for just 5 minutes. We're going to take a break for 10 minutes. So after Ron.
I was really here mainly to listen to this so that I could get some guidance on how to move forward. And so the information you provided was very, very helpful. I appreciate your comments about making a decision sooner rather than later. We do have an awful lot of data.
Right after this, we're taking a break.
But you're right. You're getting to a point where it's time to make some decisions, provide some direction. And I've got some direction here, and if there's no objection from council, we'll go ahead and start looking at some of these issues based on what you've said. Obviously, we've got a lot of data as relates to safety, so we can start prioritizing projects and give you something to consider in the future. We'll go ahead and get all that started. But that's really what I was here for today, is get some direction, and I've gotten it. Safety is important, capacity is important, intersection improvements. So we'll start working with the team to develop what those priorities could be, understanding that you're going to tweak those, you're going to have time to tweak those. We need to be concerned about equity across the county, so we'll be working with the various municipalities to take care of that. But I'm here mainly to answer any questions and any other direction you want to give me. I was simply, my part today was to listen and receive direction. I will comment to Ms. Honeycutt's point about the fair. That is something we have dusted off the shelf and are starting to look at. We do have a willing, interested party and the developer on the peninsula. So that is something we'll start talking about again. I think I'm done.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll take a 10-minute break and restart at 2:53. So next up, we're going to hear updates from our other elected officials. First up, unfortunately, Ms. O'Neill had to leave. In your packet, there is a PowerPoint from her with the update, and she wanted to let council know that they will be inviting you all to come see the new expansion over there at the opening. So you'll be hearing from her soon about that. And she sends her apologies and regards. So we'll ask each of the following officials to just take 5 minutes to provide the update. And again, if council members have questions around clarification but not discussion, that's appropriate. But I will let you know when your 5 minutes is up, and we'll start with our auditor, Mr. Tecklenburg.
Good afternoon. Usually when I follow, oh Lord, I broke the mic. Usually when I follow the coroner, I get to make a joke about death and taxes, but luckily Judge Condon's still here, so I don't break this remote anymore. And I'm going to start a timer for myself because I, as Judge Condon knows, and Julie from the Treasury, you know what's going to happen. Julie from the Treasurer's Office knows that if I start talking about taxes, I get excited. All right, 4 minutes and 50 seconds left. I appreciate you guys having me out today and the opportunity to give a quick update on what's happening in the auditor's office and maybe inform you guys on a little bit of what I do that you may not know that I do. I can find what I wrote. The other thing I was going to say is I want to extend an invitation to anyone, anytime, if they'd like to come by and come through my office, because I think a lot of folks know I send tax bills out, about 800,000 of them. It's close to 1 million tax bills when it's all said and done, when it talks about changes to tax bills because of changes in the assessor's office or people moving or stuff like that. But I do a lot more than that, and sometimes it's easier to take people through that. I didn't make a PowerPoint because I figured I'd go through this real quickly and try to give a minute or two to allow you guys to ask questions. All right, 3 minutes, 45 seconds. The core functions in my office are to maintain tax records, ensure fairness and equality according to state law, prepare the tax roll for real and personal property, calculate individual tax bills, mail those tax bills, handles appeals on personal property, requests for refunds, prepares values of watercraft, motor vehicles, business, personal property, and aircraft, manages fee in lieu of tax and TIF and multi-county park bills. I'm required to review bonds for taxing authorities and sign off. Assist taxing authorities, municipalities with millage setting and budgeting. Project revenue for the county as well as most, or help project revenue for the county as well as most municipalities in the school district. I'm a primary contact for interaction with state agencies such as Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Revenue, South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, and also work with State Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office, Comptroller General's Office, and sometimes, but not often, the State Treasurer. Process deeds and make changes in ownership. And that's something we do in Charleston that they don't do in many other places. I'm entitled to charge a fee for that, but I do not. I handle the abatement book, manage the homestead exemption program, work to ensure taxpayers are receiving state tax exemptions, public outreach, sit on the Forfeit Land Commission, and a core function is probably not efficiency, but I like to think it is. The Charleston County Auditor's Office brings in roughly 3 times as much per dollar spent as Greenbelt does, and probably 15 or 20 times when you look at the return of per dollar that's spent on the auditor's office in terms of the return. All right, I had to get all that down. We've got 2 minutes left. Key achievements for the last fiscal year. We finished digitizing microfilm, and I appreciate your help in having that financed. We expanded e-billing. We held meetings with taxing authorities in coordination with South Carolina Department of Revenue to go over millage setting and reassessment. We did something that we're calling the Charleston Project with South Carolina Department of Vehicles. It's put us as the highest percentage of homestead in the state. and the most being returned. It's become a model for statewide integration, although the Department of Motor Vehicles has told me that we're not allowed to expand at this point because we've done it so successfully in Charleston. There are worries that if we open up the door to the rest of the counties that there may be some trouble. We've had successful outreach programs, senior fair. We were invited to the AME conference. We've done timely tax billing with over 99% accuracy. I've testified on numerous bills at the State House. We have a new workflow to expedite refund requests, and we've had a record year for documented watercraft and airplanes. The challenges that my office is facing right now is, I think, a challenge that a lot of folks in the county are facing. As the jobs have become more technical, contracting and keeping employees on government salaries has become more difficult. The price of postage is going up again. I send over almost 1 million tax bills out every year. I do everything I can to try to encourage people to have e-billing. That way I can save on the postage. We have successfully, one of the other challenges is sort of balancing the increase in the workload. In the last 10 years, and I haven't asked for it, but we've only had one additional FTE. You can imagine how much the workload has increased in Charleston, and that's true of many other offices as well. Upcoming projects, 30 seconds. Unless I accidentally stop my timer. I think I did. I might be going over. Upcoming projects, partnered with South Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles to expand the Charleston project statewide. Working with South Carolina Department of Archives and History to digitize the war books at no cost. Thank you to the folks at Archives and History for that. Focus on a boat bill in the South Carolina Senate. The boat bill passed the House, and we're going to work with them in coordination with the South Carolina Association of Counties. I've testified on numerous bills related to watercraft a few times this year. Work with Richland County on airplane situs and taxation. It's become a big issue. Expand homestead exemption, targeting disabled, blind, and folks with state exemptions like ALS. It's a reassessment. So we've been working with municipalities on equalization, and we're going to expand e-billing. One last thing, and then if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. Just in terms of some of the increase, the guys in my office who go out and look for boats that are not documented in Charleston or in South Carolina, bring in $40 to $50 million in boat appraisals last year. There's over $1 million in taxes that we would not have if they didn't go out there and do it. We've made a lot of progress on airplanes. Since 2022, where we found $28 million in airplanes, to last year, where it was $42 million in airplanes. These are airplanes that were not being taxed before, had been very successful at avoiding taxation. And in fact, I just got an email while we were sitting here from one of the former directors of the South Carolina Department of Revenue. They like to sue me after they go into the private practice, representing, what else, an airplane owner who doesn't want to pay the taxes. So I'll deal with that when I get back to the office. But we made a lot of progress on making sure that folks are paying the taxes that they're supposed to pay, and in that way it allows us to have a broader tax base and hopefully to keep taxes low for everyone else. Any questions? Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Next we have Miss Julie Riley, who is here on behalf of Miss Mary Tinkler.
Okay. Thank you. Mary's in Philadelphia right now. She's at the conference for the National Association of Counties. So I'm sure she'd much rather be here. Treasurer's Office, no surprise, our biggest duty is to collect and disperse property taxes. We collected $1.4 billion worth of property taxes last year, or last fiscal year. We try to make it as convenient as possible. We've got 4 in-person service centers to accept payments in person. Online, you can pay by credit card, debit card, e-check, PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, Google Pay. Also, you can pay over the phone in English or in Spanish. And also, the address that's on the tax bills goes straight to the bank, so we do a lockbox for that. We also invest money on behalf of Charleston County government, between $1.2 and $2 billion worth of investments each month. We serve as a depositor for Charleston County government departments. It's not just that we take the money and we take it straight to the bank. We accept the transmittals from the departments. We verify the cash and check balances. We enter the information into the interactive accounting software that the county uses. We work closely with finance and reconciling all of the revenue that comes in. We also track the revenue after it hits the bank. If there's any adjustments, we let the county departments know. We also notify them of any return checks. So we're constantly involved with it. We're responsible for bond payments for Charleston County, for school districts, for PSDs. Last year, we paid $228 million in bond payments. That's one of the things, along with collection of taxes, that if you're making accurate, timely bond payments, it goes towards your rating for your AAA bond rating or your AA bond rating if you're not doing well. We ensure funds are available and issue the funds for closings on real estate transactions, whether it's through the legal department or for Greenbelts. Key achievements. Okay, our collection rate, current collection rate, is 96.8. Now that's for current tax collections. Now, because we have a delinquent tax sale, usually our ending number is 99% because everything gets sold at tax sale. If it doesn't, it goes forfeit to the land commission. Investments, last fiscal year, $70 million is what we generated in interest for our investments. In coordination with the assessor's office and with the auditor's office, the treasurer provided the educational seminars to the realtors, attorneys, and citizens of Charleston County to talk about 4% applications and homestead exemptions and other things that you can get your taxable value lowered. If you buy a 6% property, you can apply for a 25% reduction in the value for taxable purposes that a lot of people don't know about. A lot of the realtors didn't know about, and surely the real estate attorneys did not know about. So that was helpful. Also, Mary and Peter spent a lot of time working with representatives in the House to negotiate the boat bill. Starting off, talk to Mary about how that went. I have no clue. Maybe Peter knows. Upcoming projects. We've got an upgraded tax system coming next fiscal year. Mary is very strongly committed to advocating for tax reform. And we also are going to be working with Finance Department for an upgrade for One Solution because we work so closely with Finance. We handle all the revenue for the county. Finance handles all of the expenses, basically. So we work very closely with them to balance all of the funds for the county. That's it. Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nicely done. Next, Judge Condon.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you for having me, Irv Condon, your probate judge. And I'm in all your districts where, with the help of the library, we've got our probate court there where they can easy file. We're the only court in the state that has electronic filing. But I want to start with the state planning. And on the council's page there, you've got a packet there. It's estimated that 2/3 of Americans do not have a current will or trust. I'm not going to call out anybody in here, but if you don't have a will or a trust, please consider that. One thing that we do out in the public is we go to parades and we hand out our materials, and we have this QR code. Jamie Robinson's been with me for 31 years. We're out there trying to stress people to get their estate planning done. And we're also in our settlement communities making sure that they probate their estates and clear that up. And we're there to help them. If you look at our organizational chart, we're there to help people. On our estate division, we have 3,500 open estates at one time. We open 2,200 each year. We've got 5 estate clerks, and with the use of technology, we've been able to keep the manpower at that. Our commitment division, we do involuntary commitments for alcohol and drug and mental illness. I'll show you a slide shortly. Before Solicitor Wilson sees them, many times we see them. And I'll show you some people that I've seen face to face, and then they go out in the community and bad things happen. But we're doing about 2,000 involuntary commitments a year. Now think about that. Our guardianship and conservatorship area, probate court has jurisdiction over adult guardianship, family court over minor guardianship. We also do conservatorships, but we can avoid that if we do our estate planning. If we have a health care power of attorney, we can avoid the guardianship. If we have a business power of attorney, we can avoid the conservatorship. So we're hopeful there. And then I started 4 problem-solving courts to help people, to give them a second chance. And I was glad to be in North Charleston this morning. They just opened up a facility there for ladies, giving them a second chance, a reentry program. And then marriage license, we've got a program for you called LOVE. And it's called Live Online Virtual Electronic Marriage Application. And it's generating revenue from the county. Since we're the only ones online, I think all the wedding chapels in Myrtle Beach use us. We created additional work, but we're making money there for the county. Try to advance this. Thank you for your help. I may have cut it off there. And we're located in the historic courthouse and also in the commitment division, the larger building there. These are our required functions: estates, civil commitments, adult guardianship, marriage license, litigation. We do jury and non-jury trials. Our volunteer functions are the ones to the right there. We've got a drug court, mental health court, veterans treatment court, court-assisted treatment. We're trying to keep track of those coming through with civil commitment, keeping them engaged. And with the law school, we do an adult guardianship and monitoring program, and then we do community outreach. And we have the love for the out-of-county individuals. The additional income with additional work is $200,000 we're generating annually from out-of-county individuals. And then we have an estate creditors publication program where we're also saving taxpayers the money of having to go to the paper and buy a full ad. They can come to us. We make a little bit of money off that, you can see, but we're the one area we're trying to help. These are some successes and some failures here. Mary Lynn Witherspoon started a program called Mental Health Court. She was tragically murdered. This is the family. They could have shut us down. They believed in good faith what we were trying to do, and they supported us to continue that. Next time you're down across from the dock street, you'll see her tombstone there. I go by there every time. It's the white one there. And it just reminds me of the important work we do. And it's not just locally. Brianna Kofer there, and her parents there, she was murdered in Los Angeles. And the solicitor was prosecuting him, and he came through us for a civil commitment. Alice Boland, I remember sitting at a conference table doing a commitment with her over at NUSC. And months later, she was over at Ashley Hall. She had a gun. We almost had a Sandy Hook there. So it's very important that we get the support to help individuals who are suffering from mental illness. Down below here, you'll see I'm proud of some of our graduates. My wife called an electrician And lo and behold, who was it? Mike. Mike was one of my graduates, so I've got a graduate inside my house doing electrical work. So it's interesting how that happens sometimes. And then we've got Deidre there, who I'm proud to say she is a member of Charleston Center. I see that I'm out of time. One thing I'll leave you with is naltrexone, and I'm glad to answer any questions. We have a lot of challenges. These are our achievements and our challenges and roadblocks. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer those. Or you can call me at any time. Thank you for the time.
Next, we have Solicitor Wilson. Thank you.
Okay, I think I know everybody here, and hopefully you know me. I'm Scarlett Wilson. I'm the Chief Prosecutor for the Ninth Circuit. I just remind all of y'all that I have Charleston County and Berkeley County. So unlike most people who are speaking to you today, I get to deal with 2 county councils and 2 sets of governments. But I will say this, the main reason I came here today, I think most of y'all understand what prosecutors do. The numbers and things like that are published widely across the state. But I wanted to be here to thank you for what you do for me. I go to solicitors meetings all the time with solicitors from across the state, and their councils do not give them the support that they need the way that y'all give me the support that I need. And part of the reason for that, I know, is Matt Guile. And Mac, I feel like I'm his wayward child because I call him up in a frenzy many times and need him to help us work through a problem, and he does that and helps us present the information to you to help us get what we need. I could not have planned it any better. I don't know if any of you saw one of the headlines in the Post and Courier today that says Charleston County cut jail time, save tax dollars without compromising public safety. That is a result of a project that I undertook with a group called Justice Innovation Lab. And what we sought to do was to triage cases, low-level cases where people would not, under any circumstances, be going to prison, but might spend some time in jail. But to look at those cases quicker by experienced prosecutors to see if they were fit for a drug court or pretrial intervention, to see if they were a quick-moving jail case that could get a guilty plea and be done with it, or could be dismissed because the case was not strong enough. Now, what I wanted to do was to see if that worked. It has worked, and we have the data to prove it, because anecdotes in my book don't work. Too many times do I see a headline in the paper that is about something horrible that happened, and it is a 1 in a million, and there's a long story to it, but that doesn't get a click. Or if there's something good to happen, which is interesting about this headline, the Post and Courier has had this commentary for over a month, and for whatever reason wasn't going to cover it. The reporters who cover our courts found out about it and pushed its way up to get the story in. I didn't call them and say, why aren't y'all printing this? But because that kind of story doesn't get clicks, the good story that says that the county saved about $400,000 with this program, even if you cut that in half, it more than covers the cost of these people who are screening cases and who are getting people out of the system. And as you know, if you read the commentary, and there'll be another story later in the week, again, my goal always, number one, is public safety. If this program compromises public safety, we'll cut it out. But the way that we know that, the way that we have to look at that is through studying the data. So that's something that probably later in the year I may be coming to y'all at mid-year budget, because we're probably going to lose our funding from the feds, which help pay for that program. But I think we're going to be able to justify it for you to show that it is valuable. The number of cases that we were able to divert, deflect, and otherwise dispose of was limited because we did a scientific, random control, evidence-based evidence-based study, which meant there had to be a control group that wasn't getting screened. Now we're able to screen all of those cases, so we should be able to do even more good work without compromising public safety, my number one goal. So again, I just want to thank y'all for your support over the years. Cameron will, the public defender, Chief Public Defender Blazer will be up in a minute to talk more about numbers. We have a boatload of court coming our way. And we have that because Ms. Blazer and I have harassed Columbia because our court schedules were cut so much that we just couldn't move what we needed to move. They've kind of gone to the extreme and maybe given us too much. As I was telling our chief admin judge yesterday, if you gave us 200 judges in the next 6 months, we probably wouldn't move more cases than if you gave us 40 or 50 judges, because we just don't have the resources to handle that much. But we're going to give it our all, and we are ecstatic, both Ms. Blazer and I, to have a Supreme Court working with us and a Chief Administrative Judge in Roger Young, who is responsive to our needs. So I think things are looking up for both us and the Public Defender's Office. And again, thank y'all and thank Matt for your help and understanding.
Great introduction for our next speaker.
Thank you.
The thing is broken. Flip it. Let me see if I can figure this out.
Hello. I won't wait for slides since I know y'all are pressed for time. The Ninth Circuit Public Defender, like Scarlett's office, is a multi-county office like Scarlett. I work with folks in Charleston and Berkeley counties. And so we are state and local funded, and like Scarlett, I am deeply grateful for the support that we get from Charleston County. I'm almost afraid to tell you that you are the #1 county in South Carolina for funding public defense. I'm afraid to tell you that because I don't want you to think you're spending more than you should. You are leading the way in South Carolina for this work. Our core functions, I think they're probably pretty obvious, is representation of adults and children charged in misdemeanor and felony cases. And those are folks who cannot otherwise afford private representation. We also, in Charleston County only, do bond court representation. And I'm going to tell you some of the numbers on that are pretty staggering. And very important to this council's concern about public safety and public well-being, we provide social service support to our clients, connecting them to resources for behavioral health, for vocational training, and for housing. And we, I think you probably think the defense lawyers are the ones making the community less safe, but when we are encountering our clients, most of the time they are with us because they are having life problems that lead to behavioral problems. And so every chance we get to connect folks to social services is something that we are doing to make the community a safer place for our clients and for all of us as neighbors. And so we do that particularly in Charleston with 29 full-time general sessions lawyers, 3 full-time family court lawyers, and a slew of other folks. We have 7 full-time general session lawyers in Berkeley and 1 full-time family court lawyer. And I'm telling you about that because every single one of these folks is a Charleston County employee. So although Berkeley County funds what we do there, every single one of these people is serving our larger community as a member of the Charleston County government staff. So real quick, staggering number, 4,020 bond hearings done in the last fiscal year by 2 part-time lawyers and a bunch of voluntold weekend lawyers from the Public Defender's Office. We took on 4,400 new adult cases and closed only only 3,700 adult cases, but that goes back to what Scarlett was telling y'all about the new court we're getting, and we're optimistic that that we're going to flip those numbers. You can see our clearance rates in juvenile cases are about 100% in terms of what we're taking in and what we're moving through. And then over 550 of our clients received direct social work support from a social worker in our office, and that's just in Charleston. It's hard to see from here, but you can see new clients. That number is trending upward, but so are closed clients. That's the number across the bottom, the orange number, and that number continues to go up because of the support that we have from our Chief Administrative Judge and from the South Carolina Supreme Court. As we look forward into the next fiscal year, we do have some challenges. We've got, we don't control the growth of arrests or the number of times we get appointed. We are not in control of the rapid growth of our jail population. It is currently sitting at 1,300, which is costing every single one of us a lot of money. Of that 1,300 people, our office represents over 800. We struggle with jail visits and limitations there that I will not bore you with, but they are problematic, and I work regularly with our new chief, with our new sheriff to try to make inroads there. We have an ongoing lack of support statewide for behavioral health resources for our in-custody populations, and we need to continue to work to improve that. Like Scarlett said, we are in feast and famine. We've been in famine with court scheduling. We have moved over to feast, and we are trying not to choke on the feast that they have given us. And that leads directly into probably my number one concern going into the next fiscal year, and that is attorney attrition. And so, when I'm riding these people, getting them into court every single day of the week, I do worry about who we're going to be able to keep. But y'all did fund a new position for us, and so we're going to start a jail lawyer initiative that is going to try to embed a lawyer in the jail in order to support both our clients and our lawyers more effectively, triage better, get faster access to mental health supports, behavioral health supports, and we expect that to come online in November 2025. So next year, I hope to be reporting on how effective that has been, and we will do everything we can to keep data on that. So last thing I'll say, come see us do our work. We're in court every day in Charleston. We welcome you. Come see the work of the people. Come see the Constitution in action. Thanks, y'all. Yes, sir.
Your board showed that you had 7 attorneys in Berkeley County. That county continues to grow. How are you going to do that? Part 2 is they're all Charleston County employees. So if the load is light, are those attorneys interchangeable, or is one?
No, we don't. We do every now and then, because there is cross-county, generally people don't just stop and recognize the county border when they're in the middle of making bad life choices. So sometimes our Charleston folks will handle a Berkeley case and vice versa. We are anticipating raising our staffing in Berkeley. My goal is to get to 12 full-time attorneys within the next 5 years. I think I'll be at 9 within this fiscal year. And I have been working hard with your friends across town to increase our funding, and I'm happy to say that for the first time in recorded memory, Berkeley County gave me every dollar I asked for this fiscal year. So we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next up, we have Angela Craig from Charleston County Public Libraries.
Good afternoon, Council. Good afternoon, everyone. So happy to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. I would be remiss if I didn't thank you all, Council, for your support of the public library, and we enjoy collaborating with all of the county staff. I would also be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Walt and his wonderful department for the facilitation of the referendum and work that they have done. We have one more building, Walt, one more, and we are so excited. He is so excited to have that building almost off his plate. He's probably going to talk about it later. I'm Angela Craig. I'm the Executive Director of Charleston County Public Library. I have been for the last 6 years. It is my pleasure to have that position. We have 5 focus areas that help guide us. We consider this our compass. It is community engagement, educational success, literacy, and workforce development with a foundation of equity. What we mean by equity is to make sure that every single citizen in Charleston County can equally access all of our resources, our wonderful resources, however their access points are, however they identify, wherever they are in the county, which can be a challenge, and that is something I will be touching on when I do talk about challenges. Our key achievements have been bright and wonderful. Isaac, I'm sorry, I had to take this picture. We were talking about our partnership. We love to partner with the different entities. We have a reimagined tech team. Digital literacy is one of our cornerstones. It's something that we are frequently asked for from the public for help, and that has been something we have launched successfully. The Albert Learns to Vote children's book, which we did in collaboration with the Board of Voter Registration. We were awarded the Roper Healthcare grants, 2 $10,000 grants to support the Free and Fresh community fridge programs and the Yoga for Kids. Free and Fresh is a program that we have at several of our public library locations where we provide free food for people in food deserts. It has been very well received by the county. We do not use county dollars for that. We do depend on donations, and we have a wonderful rapport with different community gardens as well. And the Edisto Island and Sullivan's Island Library reopened. Those are 2 smaller communities, but they are vibrant library communities, and they love to have our presence. Awards and recognitions, again, we are the only 5-star library in this area. We were a community impact champion, and we do receive different national recognition. We also are a frequent guest in different panels around the nation, not just in the library, but also in technology best practices, and also on the state level too. So some of the challenges that we have, supporting community needs for wraparound services. Books and technology are very much at the cornerstone of what we do, but we have, in the last couple of years, pretty much with COVID, we have had people come in asking for help beyond what a public librarian would normally ask for. They are asking for legal help. They are asking for health help. They are asking for social services. They are asking for things that are out of the bound of what I would consider a traditional library role, and I'm very protective of what librarians do. We are not counselors. We are not lawyers. We are not bankers. We do not want to guide our public in a direction that we are not qualified to do. So we often partner with entities to help close that gap. Something that I'm hoping is a solution. It's something that I know that y'all have signed off on. It is the partnership with the Trident United Way group. They are going to be renting space at the main library for 10 years, and they are going to be complementing the gap in the wraparound services that we have. We will also complement them because we are very active, as I said, with workforce development, career services, educational success, and so we are a complement to some of the gaps that they have. So we think we have a solution, and I'm looking forward to presenting that at a later time. Another challenge that we have, yes, is equitable access. Some of those wonderful resources that we have are just not accessible to people around the community, in the rural communities, even in the urban areas. It could be a broadband issue, it could be a mobility issue, it could be a health issue, or even an awareness issue. And so that's something that we are constantly working on to calibrate to make sure the community knows about us and that they know about all the wonderful services. Our upcoming projects we're very excited about. We are currently in a 5-year strategic plan starting this year. In 2030, we will be celebrating our centennial anniversary of CCPL's incorporation. And so we are working for the next 5 years to complete some projects that we have and then to celebrate our 100-year anniversary. We have new youth library cards, which will be an opt-in process for parent caregivers. Those should launch in September, where parent caregivers can opt in on the level of restriction they would like for their children to have access to library materials. And soon we will be launching our community engagement sessions, which are actually going to be facilitated by the Riley Center. These are going to be going out to about 10 different targeted groups, in person and also online, where we're going to be getting feedback on programming and collection development provided by the library so that we can hear from the community directly what they would like to see on our shelves and what they would like to see from us from a programming standpoint. And so I have 5 seconds for any questions that you would like to ask them.
Next, we have Isaac Kramer.
You ready? maybe I can break this.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isaac Kramer, and I know most of you know me as the Executive Director of the Board of Elections. First, the solicitor stole my beginning of thanking you all so much, because what she said is true for Charleston County government. Wherever I go, the praise said for our Charleston County Council, our Charleston County government is true, and it's no different for elections. We are the best elections run county in the state of South Carolina. We are the gold standard, and I'm very thankful to each one of you for supporting our mission, for supporting free and fair elections, and most importantly, giving us the building that we have that will be purchased next June. So thank you so much. The voters love it, the staff love it, but most importantly, it's only possible through your support and your investment. So thank you for that. This is our mission. Obviously, we conduct elections, but we do this in a manner, and the acronym is VOTE. It's through vigilance, objectivity, transparency, and in a manner that promotes excellence in everything we do. That's what we're all about. Obviously, we conduct a local, state, and federal elections. We recruit trained poll workers, conduct early voting, voter registration at Election Day. We prepare and test all our equipment, and one of our biggest core components is outreach, to let people know there's an election going on, because while we run elections, it seems like every month there's an election in Charleston County, which is a challenge. Our key achievements, Angela said this, we won a national award for Albert Learns to Vote, which is an awesome children's book story about overcoming differences in exercising your right to vote. This book not only is in every library, in every school, but actually was shared nationally with schools in Connecticut and Florida, and it's going to continue to get more popularity. We're currently looking how to sell the book. And there's a lot of interest because of the message. It goes far beyond what happens in Charleston County. The theme of the book transcends that, which we're very thankful for. As you know, we had the presidential election. Yes? It feels like years ago, but it was in this past fiscal year. We had a historic election in early voting. We led the state in Mount Pleasant at Seacoast Church. That was the busiest early voting site in the entire state of South Carolina. And I want to highlight our collaboration with Charleston County government. We had Day for Democracy that continues to go strong, where county employees are serving as poll workers. So thankful to the county administrator, Mr. Tootin, for helping us get this program off and launched, and every department head, every DCA to support that mission. I want to thank the DCA Watson for your tremendous support with emergency management and public safety, ensuring our polling places are safe and secure, and that continued partnership. The next one is Voter Accessibility Advisory Committee. This is a new committee, and we've actually partnered with people in the disabilities community to give feedback to our office to help us be more accessible, not only just at polling places, but also the information we're giving. And when voters come to cast their ballot, they can do so in a way that is for them. So a lot of times people don't know what services we provide. They don't know that the voting machines are accessible. And also, they might not feel comfortable sharing what is going on specifically with their physical disability. We also partnered with multiple groups to kind of launch this committee, and that won us a national award. And lastly, our Voter Ambassador Program, where we actually empower members of the community to be our spokespeople for elections. So that's information on how to register to vote, all the important deadlines, and they actually will help us, and we give them a packet of information, we give them a bag, they can share that at all their community events. So our challenges, we've already had 4 special elections this year. MAC, I know we always do the budget planning time. We can't predict when special elections happen, but this is actually something where we can work together. There's a bill in the State House right now that would actually set a scheduled special election calendar, and it's passed the Senate, and now it's in the House. So if you have connections to your legislators here locally, we need to get this bill passed next year, and that will bring financial responsibility to how elections are run, that they're not happening the day after 2 holidays this year. For example, Martin Luther King Day the day after, and also the day after Memorial Day. Next, updates to our election building. We were not allowed to do certain things because it was being leased. So there are things we're going to work with facilities to upgrade and make our building what it needs to be 100%. So we're going to be in that planning process now, even though it'll be the next fiscal year. Election security. I mentioned my meeting with DCA Watson. I have tremendous respect for everything they do with our new emergency management director, Justin Pierce. Fantastic team. We're going to continue working together to make sure our elections are safe and secure. And then our upcoming projects, we'll have an accessibility menu at every polling place for people with disabilities that they will actually be able to hand it to our clerks, and we will know how to serve them best. There will be more information on that. I'm really excited about that project. National Voter Registration Day is September 16th. It's not about just registering to vote, but being vote ready. And then lastly, our election security front, we're going to put GPS tracking on all of our election equipment that's deployed to the polling places. This not only protects county assets from a financial standpoint, but also the security of our voting system as it leaves our office, that we can see it every step of the way and when it comes back to our office. So we're being on the cutting edge of that. We'd be the only county in the state of South Carolina to do that, and actually in a majority of counties in the state, or in the country. And with that, appreciate everything you do to support us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Of course. Yes, sir.
You know, like Albert, that's generates some income. But my bigger question, we keep having, you address some of these special elections, but some municipalities still have these quirky off-schedule elections. Seems like we've had one or two come before us to roll them in. What are you doing to get rid of those if possible, so that you're not ramping up 5 times a year?
Excellent question, and I'm proud to announce that every single municipality in Charleston County is in November of odd years.
Excellent.
And they're paying their fair share of election costs. Yes, sir.
Next question. Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Isaac. And last up in this section, Mr. David LeBlanc with Veterans Affairs.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I debated whether I wanted to address this body, and I said, well, it certainly gives me an opportunity to thank you all for everything you do in support of our veterans. As many of you all know, the PACT Act got rolled out about 3 years ago, and we found ourselves with 4 employees, and the veterans were beating our door down. The largest VA healthcare and benefit expansion in the history of the VA. We put together a justification, and y'all were kind enough to fund 2 FTEs, and then we struggled with finding the right person, the right people to do the job. We actually went through 4 people to get where we're at today, and I can tell you, we are where we need to be now. We're right-sized, and I'll talk a little bit about where we are now. I put this up here just so that people understand that we are not the VA. We have veterans come in and they complain about the VA to us, and we explain to them, well, we're in Charleston County. It's not to say anything negative about the VA. We're blessed with one of the best VA medical centers in the country. And in fact, there was a banner down at the VA. Many of y'all might have seen in a metrics, patient satisfaction, customer satisfaction, waiting time. The Charleston VA Medical Center was ranked as the #1 hospital in the entire state of South Carolina. Now, I don't know what that says about some of our health care in South Carolina, but the VA Medical Center is very good. We are blessed with that. So when we have those who come in and complain about the health care, we know it's more than likely the veteran. So this is the 3 different administrations that we deal with. Our primary area is in the benefit administration. And this is our mission statement. So every day, where the rubber meets the road is with our veteran service officers. They're the ones that are scheduling appointments and talking with the veterans, their spouses, their dependents, to explain to them the VA benefits that are available to them. And you would be surprised how many of our veterans have no clue many of the VA benefits that they're entitled to. So it's part of our daily operations is we want to educate and empower them. One of the things the VA has done a very good job of is a very robust VA.gov website. We tell our veterans when they come in, if you have a question, just Google it. Now, we assume that the majority of our veterans can get access to a computer and know how to Google something. We also tell them when you Google something, like you Google how to get a VA home loan, you're not going to get VA.gov until probably the second or third page. You're going to get all the lenders that come up first. So we always tell them go to VA.gov for the answer to all your questions. So this is one of the character of discharge. We get a lot of veterans who got out and were dishonorably discharged. They're not eligible for VA benefits. There's some issues that we can help them with to go back to their service and request a reconsideration of that characterization of discharge. We spend a lot of time with that. So I put this up there just to show that we get a lot of calls because people think we're the VA. I want to reschedule my medical appointment at the VA. No, you need to call the VA. 577-5011. Job placement. There are so many different resources within the VA and within the local community that can provide job placement. SEDU, they've got a veteran specialist in that organization now. We don't disperse funds. We get calls, hey, can somebody come over and cut my grass? Can somebody help with rebuilding my roof that's falling down? All those kind of things that we get calls. We respond to them. We send them in the right direction. We know where the resources are, whether federal, state, and local resources, where they can go out and get this help. And then lastly, accept payment of any kind of services provided. Holiday season rolls around, the envelopes will show up, and they might have a check in there. Everybody on my staff knows if you get money, check or otherwise, the Fisher House, which is the Ronald McDonald Veteran House, is where we direct them all to. And we do get money, and we know every year we put it together. We make a contribution from our office on behalf of the veterans of Charleston County to the Fisher House. And this, like I said, these are our key personnel. They're the ones that get to listen to all the issues that our veterans have. They're not simply administrative employees. They're specially trained, and on any given day, they could be a family counselor, social worker, medical expert, and legal advisors, all the same person helping our veterans. As I said, we have a relatively small staff. I am the only one on my staff that's a veteran. However, all the other 5 VSOs are spouses of veterans, so they understand the commitment it takes at one time when they served our country. Key achievements, I do have in here 20,000 office interactions. That's one thing. To give you a great example, a year ago, we were in the process of still getting 2 VSOs fully trained and accredited. We had 100 callers every day that we could not get back to them. And in fact, we weren't getting back to them for maybe a week or 2 because we were spending a lot of time getting them up to training and things. Last week, on Tuesday when we left, on Thursday when we left for the 4th of July, we had 3 callers to return. So it's been the dedicated hard work. We've got the right people. We've got the right mix. These challenges are kind of not really an issue anymore, funding for required training conferences. We used to get $6,000 every year for our training conferences. Well, we have additional people, so we asked for more money, and we justified it, laid it out, and we got that money in this year's budget. This should be, I left out end-of-life planning seminars. The VA has a very good information about planning your legacy and your retirement. We're planning on setting up seminars within Charleston County, hopefully in the next couple months, to talk about veterans. We get a lot of questions about home health care, assisted living, death benefits, all those kind of things. So in closing, I want to say thank you again for everything you do, for your continued support of this office. It's a job we all enjoy. And like I said, getting the right people is where we're at right now, and we couldn't have done it without your support.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break.
Well, we're not going to take a break. We're going to take a break from the presentations. And certainly, council members, I know we've been sitting and receiving a lot of information. A lot of this information has been extremely informative. Certainly, it gives us a better perspective of some of the departments and our elected officials and things that they're doing. And certainly, as we listen to the presentation coming from item 3 on the agenda, the transportation sales tax, that was revelatory, and our ability information surrounding that. This is a special finance committee meeting as well, and I believe Ms. Honeycutt has something percolating over there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think based on the information presented today, I would like to go ahead and make a motion to direct staff to move forward with the program outlined by our transportation consultants and provide an analysis and data to council within 60 days so council can begin the process of making a decision regarding the future of our transportation program.
It was properly moved by Ms. Honeycutt, seconded by Mr. Wehrman, that I heard first. Thank you so much. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Thank you so much. The ayes have it, and at this time, we'll take a 3-minute break.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have the internal auditor, Mr. Stewart.
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm going to go through some slides that go through some history for the department because it affects some of the challenges and goals that we have. So our mission statement is, primary mission is to provide county council with information and recommendations to improve the accounting and safeguarding of county resources and the efficiency and effectiveness of county operations. So we are a support function for council and management. And we do this by providing objective, unbiased reports. So our core functions, number one, evaluating risk management. So we are continually, over the years, it's been a lot of things that were not in place with the county when I started. For example, there were no written county financial procedures. So I would do audits, and then I would make recommendations, and people would say, well, what's that based on? You know, is that your opinion? Which it wasn't my opinion. It was based on good internal controls, but I didn't have anything to back it up. So over the years, I worked with finance. Finance was good to get that started. So I was making up my own forms, making up my own recommendations, but then eventually they did create written financial procedures. So that's one example, but the other, our bread and butter is the number 2 and number 3, assessing internal controls and ensuring compliance. So assessing internal controls is when we review policies, procedures, and systems to ensure they are properly working. And the compliance is to verify compliance with relevant laws, regulations, policies, and procedures. Improving operations, we primarily concentrate on financial, but sometimes we do operational audits that we do and recommend improvements in that area. And then the unpleasant area, number 5, is investigating fraud and misconduct. Unfortunately, that happens everywhere, including the county. I don't think we have a lot of it. I think with the controls that we have in place that we're able to keep that in a good place. But you can never have perfect control. There's always a risk that somebody can find a loophole. But basically what we try to do is try to determine what the law says, if any, and then recommend controls to prevent or detect future occurrences. And the 6 and 7 is we provide management with input to assist them with their responsibilities by conducting audits and providing reports. And a lot of times this takes things out of the shadows and where they can be addressed. For our achievements, this is our performance measures that we track this every year. So the first one is our goal is to do at least 80% of the audits that are scheduled. We barely made it this year, but we had a big request from the sheriff, which had tied up a lot of resources. So, which we actually have, it's like 3 or 4 audits, and they rolled over into the new year. Departmental surveys, all the standard audits, we send out a survey. We have 5 categories. Our objective was 50%, we got 56. If I get 50% back, I think I'm doing a good job, because a lot of people won't respond to surveys, as you know. And the next thing is the average evaluation score. Our objective is 95. We had 97.8. And we've always had above 95. This is based on the department. They give us a score on the overall satisfaction for the audit. And I don't think anybody wants to have an audit, but I think they understand that it serves a purpose. So we've got some really good comments over the years from these evaluations. Mostly positive, sometimes negative, but if we get a negative, we take it into consideration. And then the next one is recommendations for standard audits accepted and implemented. We would like for 100% to be accepted, but our objective is 80%. And sometimes the personnel will agree with either the recommendation or the finding itself. And the last one is it's a cost per hour. We're very conscious of the county's money and of the taxpayer money, so our cost per hour is way less than what if the county had to hire someone. Out of time?
Okay. All right, please allow him to give us his challenges.
Okay. Well, the challenges I have are the challenges pretty much everybody has, except it's probably magnified because we just have a small staff. We audit more departments now than we did before. So when I started with the county, my predecessor was not auditing all the departments. So since I've been with the county, we audit all of them. And the county has added new services and departments over the years. We've expanded the scope as developments took place in the county. We've added payroll, we've added contracts, and when the county started the P card, we've added P card to our review. Requests and investigations reduce the time for our regularly scheduled audit. We have a goal that we try to do every department 3 to 4 years, and we are achieving that. But all these factors can make it difficult to do that. And employee staffing and turnover the same as all you guys. I have for the private auditors, it was 2.5 years is the average times. So the good thing is I've got Ed Carnes has been there 11 years, so hopefully he'll stay with me. And the other thing is just the same kind of things all you guys deal with. You got to stay current on laws, regulations, policies, and procedures. Sometimes we have trouble getting documentation from the departments, but overall we have a good relationship with them.
Thank you. I'm not used to people paying attention when I stand up, but I should have known auditors are very good at adhering to the rules. So thank you. I appreciate that. And next up, we have Ms. Salisbury. Is that one yours? It's the red one. Oh, sorry. There you go. All right. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, council members, we're going to start off with, this is my mission statement, and basically we are committed to supporting effective and transparent governance by providing professional administrative, legislative, and procedural guidance to you, your boards and commissions, the county departments, and the public at large. We also serve as a vital link between our citizens and you by ensuring accurate documentation, accessible records, and timely public notice of meetings. And then this is my leadership oath that I adopted when I went through a leadership class a few years ago. I won't read it to you, but you can read it. My key achievements, I'm not going to belabor this much because I sent this to you all at the end of the fiscal year. But I will draw your attention to some of my priorities, which I already sent to you. But the boards and commissions training, you'll see on our next agenda that I'm going to ask you all to make training for your boards and commissions appointees mandatory. And then we will go to work training those boards and commissioners to make sure they have a good understanding of FOIA, the role of a board member versus the role of the staff that administers those boards and commissions, and meeting management. I was holding off on doing that until we learned what, if anything, the legislature was going to do about the oaths, and as we know, they did nothing with it this year, so I feel comfortable going ahead and offering that training to the boards and commissioners at this time. Let's see. And then as far as challenges or roadblocks, we really do in our office with Kristen and Amon's help, we try to be problem solvers. So when the departments come to us with problems or issues or needing advice, we really do try to mitigate problems for them and be intermediary between them and you, and just trying to help smooth processes just throughout government. Any potential problem that I could see is not really a problem, but as we face elections next year, there could be turnover on council, which presents just some, getting used to new people, new personalities, that kind of thing. And then if my office staff gets just the least bit busier, there may be a potential that I may need another position in my office, a project officer, to help take some workload off of Kristen Worster's very full plate. So that is it for me. Any questions? Mr. Moody?
Thank you so very much. Thank you for everything you do for us. And I'd like that boards and commissions training. I would assume you'll need some help maybe from staff developing that, because I don't speak for this council, but I know I'm fatigued at some of the things that keep coming back to us because our boards and commissions maybe are making decisions based on politics or policies or something other than what's the regulations before them. So I would hope the training that's before them it focuses on doing your job according to the book.
Sure, absolutely. And I've provided that training to boards and commissions on a one-off kind of basis. I helped out the disabilities board. I helped the library staff recently this year with some issues that they were having. And so I do have something that's pretty ready to go. The county attorney's office helps me with that. Mark Bell and Ed Nisley are tremendous support with all of the actual legal things. And so that's that.
Ms. Ham and then Mr. Tootin.
Good afternoon, council members. So I do not actually have a presentation for you all. You all know that usually when there's an issue, I come directly to you, usually via the pathway of executive session, but nonetheless, I did want to give you a couple of things. I wanted to read to you my office's mission statement, just so that you were aware. But the mission of the legal department is to provide proactive, ethical, and effective legal counsel to county officials and departments to ensure lawful governance, minimize risk, and protect the interests of the county and its residents. We have a full staff upstairs. We advise all the county departments. We handle the litigation throughout the county. We handle cases that come in through the IRF. We manage those attorneys. And so we have our hands full. We are generally scheduled out for months at a time if you take into account the court schedule. And we've even seen some of what Scarlett and Cameron have mentioned with regards to court time. we've seen that pick up for us too. And that can be a challenge for our transportation department when we're trying to get court time to get condemnation cases done and things of that nature. So we are definitely seeing an uptick in that. And so we're figuring out, we actually had a meeting recently to figure out how to manage some of the things that we anticipate coming forward from some of our future projects. And so I'm working collaboratively with the departments, with the administrator, with the clerk, all the time. Generally, if there is an issue, I'm one of the first people to know about it, and just like Kristen, even though sometimes the issue isn't legal, we do our best to try and help problem solve those issues. We have to be really careful because people lean on the legal department so heavily for legal advice that, we're not telling them what to do in their day-to-day jobs with regards to their own professional responsibilities. The challenges for my department, honestly, the challenges were that some of the software was outdated. And so we took an opportunity last year to upgrade some of those things. And this year, we're going to be getting new software for our prosecution department. We will actually have the same software as Scarlett Wilson. And so I'm very excited about that because we, with the outdated software, don't even have the basic ability to track our cases. And so now we'll have a lot more ability to do those things. And so I'm very excited about that. And thanks again to Matt Gowell over there. Shout out to Matt. Some of the upcoming initiatives that we do have that I am working on is when I first got here, it was really important to me to try and provide mentorship. And I haven't been able to do that the last couple of years just because we've been so busy. But I'm hoping to re-implement our clerkship program this year, which is where we take a student from the law school and they're paid through this program. They would become a temporary employee of the county attorney's office and utilize them, which gives me the ability to expose a younger cohort of lawyers to government law. It's how I got exposed. So I think that I'm going to try and re-implement that. So maybe in the future you'll see an actual law clerk by my side in the next couple years. So, any questions?
I would simply like to just remind council members that we did receive an exhaustive presentation from you relative to all of the things that you do, so I wanted to reference you all back to that as well.
Thank you, Reverend Middleton. And you all know that I'm always just a call away.
But I'm going to make some staff look very silly right now and get worried because I'm going to go off script. So if the point is for you guys to learn things that you don't normally know, that's what I'm going to tell you in 5 minutes here. Number one, we're going to start with the folks directly in my office. Most of y'all don't know because you get there after normal operating hours. So you don't know about AJ, you don't know about Nino, you don't know about DeAsia. They get the budgets done, they get the paperwork going. Make sure everything is turned in on time. Keep schedules for all of us in there. Administrative, pens, paper, all that kind of stuff. They take care of all that for us. Amanda, raise your hand. Amanda is the single contact for our lobbying efforts and stuff with DC and with the state. And we've gotten in the past year and a half about $35 million in federal and state funding. She also helps me with the policy developments, any sort of issues. Generally, if I know about it, she knows about it. Some say she has a very good opinion on things, and we work together on that. Chloe has been not with us very long, about a year. We now have a better relationship than I think we have ever had with the media. Nothing against folks in the past. Her team with Caitlin and Jen, who put videos together, make timely responses, get information out for weather issues. Very good team. And again, Chloe works closely with the media, and I think the media now knows that if there's inaccurate information, that we will not sit passively and not respond to it. Is that the fair way to say it, Chloe? Okay. Carter, the ombudsman, who I think everyone on council knows, probably knows very well, is our first line of defense when it comes to constituent services across all department lines. A lot of times not even county departments. Carter will go to the DOT. Carter will go to State House members. Carter will go where it needs to go to get the job done. Sean, who's not here, so we'll talk very quickly about him. Y'all probably knew him in a past capacity. Sean has got us paperless and more efficient on many issues like staff summary sheets that used to be paper. It's more efficient now. You can pull it all up. Even I can figure it out on a computer, so it's not so difficult to do. Michael and Meredith, Capital Projects. If you've driven past the Public Works building that some of us went on a tour yesterday, it is phenomenal. Kristen, what word are you using?
Phenomenal is the only word I can use.
It is phenomenal. It is under budget. It is long overdue. Steve, we kicked the can on that for 24 years. So you're going to look at it, you're going to say, holy crap, but they deserve it. And we've also talked about the possibility of even having a council meeting in there with all the facilities and stuff. So those are things that you probably know or didn't know. Now I'm going to tell you some things that I'm pretty sure you don't know. So everybody knows that we have the teddy bear toss, that we have the baseball game with all the fun things. Well, lots of things are not fun that don't necessarily get to y'all that we deal with on a daily basis. So we've had a lot of babies born recently. Bet y'all didn't know that. We've had a few. Deasia had a baby. Little Willie. She has a different name for it, but we're going to go with Little Willie because that's in honor of me. So we go through, we've had babies. We've had senior leadership lose a lot of siblings here. We've had senior leadership lose parents. 2 senior leaders lost their mothers last week. Folks in this room have lost a parent in the last few weeks. People still show up and come to work. When we had an employee who was murdered violently, folks from different departments came down, covered that department. We didn't close it, so everyone in the entire department could attend the funeral. Ms. Honeycutt, you were there at that funeral. That was quite emotional. Would not have been able to have friends and coworkers there if everybody else, I'm not saying they did a great job, sorry Sharon, but they answered questions, and if they didn't, they got back to the constituents. These were our front-facing windows. So, when we recently lost an EMS employee who'd been with us for quite some time, very close to Christine, Eric, our building practically emptied to come out in the middle of the day, hot as hell, to stand there when the procession came by. People didn't have to come back to work. We said if you needed some time, everybody came back. They showed up. Found out this year that we had a coworker that, due to a bad set of circumstances, was homeless and a full-time employee living in a car with a child. We got involved with that. We took care of it. We're working on a program to keep things where we can try to pull things together quicker in the future. If a certain very bad set of circumstances all hit, it was a perfect storm. We made sure that if that happens again, that no one is going to be left out. Again, everybody came together. That same EMS employee during his service, we had EMS come from across the state because that's how much when we go, we help. That we didn't ask them, they volunteered so that our EMS personnel could go to the service. Doesn't happen very often. We have co-workers that get threatened constantly. Public Works crew has been threatened lately with weapons. All they're doing is their job. Showed back up the next day. Had to go get law enforcement, but they showed back up. We've had a magistrate and her staff get threatened yesterday in the West Ashley Magistrate office. I was over there. I know Christine was over there. Dale from Eric's office was there. CPD was there. The sheriff's office was there. We've had folks at convenience centers who apparently don't want to pull out their driver's license, but have no problem pulling out a gun. Again, don't know if y'all know about all these things, but that's the kind of stuff that we try to deal with on a daily basis. And yet again, did any of those convenience workers not show up the next day? We also have to deal with the traffic. So when people say, oh, the county doesn't care, well, by God, if anybody wanted to get the roads better, it'd be the people sitting in this room that have to drive in it every day. One employee drives 2 hours to work each way. Lives in Myrtle Beach, drives to work each day. Loves what she does, better than, I guess, dealing with anything in Myrtle Beach. It is the dirty Myrtle. So everybody shows up. So I wanted y'all to know we catch a lot of crap from employees getting harassed, verbally bullied, creeped on by certain people that we won't mention, that I'm sure most of you know who I'm referring to in this room, but it happens to other folks. So please remember that I'm way over time, and that employees, we are a chaotic group. We play practical jokes on each other. We have fun when we can. Ask Chloe; she can tell you about the most recent practical joke as of today. But when we need to show up, we show up. I mean, who'd have thought we'd had to have a deputy at this? But yet that was one of the concerns, because wearing a county logo sometimes also makes you a target. So just want y'all to remember that when someone complains or someone has issues, we're going to show up, we're going to be there. The rest of the DCAs are going to tell you the nuts and bolts. They're going to tell you what we did, what we didn't do, what we need to do, concerns we had. Christine told me to be entertaining. I don't know if that was entertaining, Ms. Durant. Are you still awake? All right, well then, I think it's your turn, unless y'all have any questions. But those are some things that just want you to know that the senior leadership deals with every day that might not get to y'all's level that we try to handle. So usually we can handle them. Isn't that right, Christine? So without any questions, DCA Durant, you're up. Are you going to come sing me?
I want to know why Kendra did not stand up and tell you to sit down. Just saying. Sir. I know you all know me. I've been around a long time. I am the DCA over Community Services. Oh, good. And no, it just keeps going. So the next it will go. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Just quickly to summarize, Charleston Center. We have a level 3 hospital system in Charleston County, and I don't know that everybody understands that. The only difference between a level 3 and, say, MUC, a level 4, is the type of medical services that are provided. So we have a hospital. Sometimes people think the Alcohol and Drug Treatment Center is just a place people show up and go home. People live there and live there for long periods of time to deal with their addiction. Community development revitalization. Of course, you're familiar with HUD, you're familiar with ARPA. What you may or may not realize last year is I consolidated both of those divisions under one director, Luella Smalls. I like to say she is our people liaison. She is the department head that will lead the programs that touch people. Housing and land management. You're familiar, of course, with Greenbelt. When I hired Eric Davis some years ago, I said, there's a vision I have going forward regarding land management, because Greenbelt is one element of what we do, but so is land acquisition for housing. Fortunately, Fortunately for me, he also was the top selected candidate for the housing program. So that allowed me to merge those two things together too and restructure for efficiency's sake, for logical, critical thinking action. And then finally, magistrate court, which is of course spread across all of the municipalities. I could go on about the things that my staff do and the departments do. They're all amazing. There are very few of you that I haven't talked to that hasn't had a citizen that needed something. But what I do want to focus on in terms of key achievements are the things we're doing to tell our story. Because one of the things I think that the county doesn't do well is truly convey to citizens all that we do. So over this past year and a half, we've really worked hard on dashboards that very simply and succinctly show the community the things that we do for them. You'll see them, just a few of them up there, the opioid dashboard, tracking where the opioid overdoses are, the housing dashboard, all the projects, rentals, home ownership, the projects that you all have approved, the ARPA dashboard, how are we spending money? How did we achieve the goals that you all established under the plan? The Greenbelt dashboard, again, what are we doing? How are these programs working? How easy is it to apply for these programs? So that's an important piece because, again, our story is what matters. That's the people. In our court system, one of the things we've been tracking is the amount of time it takes a case to get through to completion. We have noticed a significant decrease in days of cases lingering for both housing and domestic violence court. We've been tracking not only an increase in cases, but a decrease in time. So that's kudos to our staff who are streamlining the way that the cases are working, but also our judges who are moving them through. You all are familiar briefly with that we've received a first in its kind disaster assistance grant to actually allow us to work on homes that have been impacted by disasters. We've not ever had something like that before. And then of course, big thing, which really took up a number of years, the obligation of the ARPA funds that had to be obligated by 2024 December and spent by December 2026. Now that's going to lead into some challenges. I want to talk a little bit about, and I think you'll see this theme of challenges that we're facing, recruiting and retaining talented, qualified personnel. All of my departments are facing that. The AOTUS Charleston Center facing nurse shortages and having to use contract nurses to cover the detox unit. Certainly magistrates, summary court specialists, trying to find people that can travel to McClellanville to manage that court versus out in Ravenel, wherever that may be, finding that talent and keeping it. Of course, we all know about the potential local, state, federal cuts, the Medicaid cuts that could impact our medical billing. Of course, Charleston Center is a medical facility. We rely heavily on the funds that we bill to pay for the services, both in insurance and Medicaid. Another big challenge that we are tackling, and it is really just beginning, is the ongoing monitoring of all of these new programs that we've started over the last couple years. We're not off the hook because we've obligated. Now the fun really begins in making sure that what the contracts say these programs will accomplish, they actually accomplish. That's going to be an ongoing challenge because the monitoring can go on typically 3 to 5 years after the last spending of a federal dollar. So that's a longer term commitment and challenge that we're going to face. I mentioned the challenge with the shrinking workforce and the talent needed to fulfill our services to the citizens. Our citizens want more. They want Chick-fil-A. I mean, it's my pleasure to serve you. And we have incredible people that are here doing that, but we have a shrinking workforce with demands for higher services. And lastly, the regional coordination to deal with the housing crisis. We can talk all day long in Charleston County, but we rely on a number of municipalities that we have to coordinate with to actually create a vision for how we're going to deal with what we all have talked about in terms of the challenges for our citizens. Our goals, just succinctly, we are targeting under the tax abatement program to bring six tax abatement projects to you for housing affordability. We are going to work and you all prioritize the focus on planning and zoning, building services, permitting to ensure that all of our processes for the housing and the affordable housing times projects are moving promptly. This is a term that came
he showed, and I think it's funny, the Bananaism Challenge. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. We are facing how do we tackle the housing crisis when we have folks that are objecting to or it's not the right place for. So in our 5-year consolidated plan, we are obligated under the federal dollars to do a very wide-scale public participation plan and set the course for the next 5 years. We are in the 5th year of our last 5-year plan, so we will be beginning the next 5-year plan for that. And a big objective that we have across all of our departments is moving to simplified software programs for ease for the citizens to get access to us, but also for us to manage all of the varying things that are happening throughout all of these programs. I think that's it. Any questions? I was your opening act. Good luck.
You're right. Get them. Okay, where's the slide change?
They're all on the same place.
They're on the same one? Where's I brought my book here, and Steve and Eric say, "Walk, it's only 5 minutes. Don't do that." So let's see what we got. Okay, that's my world. I have 2 frontline departments, building inspections and zoning and planning, and I have 3 support departments, facilities management, safety and risk management, and the IT department, and 1 direct department, resilience and sustainability. Here are key achievements. Okay, the first category is software and systems upgrade, and we'll look at the website domain. This Saturday, we will be implementing the first phase of .gov, moving to .gov. So don't be alarmed. .org will work throughout the whole phases that we'll be going to as we move from .org to .gov. So this will be up after this coming weekend. GIS, new software, besides the usual GIS parcel lookup, they have added additional services for citizens to go in and get different maps, addressing, or even reserve street names. So there's a lot of capability within the GIS Hub. One of the things I'm really happy about is this safety and risk management software. Prior to uploading that software, they were doing everything in paper, taking such a long time. So that was uploaded and live last week, and we can get information quickly to the administrator. He would ask for, hey, give me the history on the number of accidents. Well, we have to run through all the paperwork to do it. And he said, hey, we got to fix that. And the safety and risk management folks did just that. The Braswell and Mathesferry Towers, and the Channel 2 Towers, we're off that. We have 2 new towers, and we got much better coverage in the city and in Mount Pleasant. In Charleston County, grant-funded flood projects, we have about 129 repetitive losses. But we got grant funded for 7 homes, and then we had a grant fund for 1720 Boone Hall Drive. So if those happen, 8 from 129, we'll have 121 repetitive losses in Charleston County. EMS stations, those first 2, they should be completed first part of September. So we will have ribbon cuttings on that. The Kiowa EMS, we're still looking to get funding, HUD funding on that. The original funds for that was going to be used for the pilot lab, so we are applying and getting those $7 million to add to this 8.8 requirement to build the Kiowa EMS. Challenges, just like everybody else. Recruitment and retention of skilled personnel. Our building inspectors, we bring them on, and they're required to have 4 certifications
Bill coming out looking for them and offering them all sorts of things. I got a flyer yesterday from ICC, and it says all these good things that they will provide to someone. And the big thing about it, they are only requiring one certification. We require 4. But that is good for us, because I can send one person out to inspect and do mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and whatever else. Deferred maintenance, every year we get $6 million for asset preservation, and we want to continue that, keep getting it. And it's to help maintain our building envelopes. And that is your roofing, your walls, your windows, expansion, joint, and foundation. A couple of examples of that, the historical courthouse. And that lasts about 20 years until we did what the upgrade we just finished up. Blake Tenement, we just did that. And a couple of years ago, we did the PSB. We went all around it. And I got to tell you, when we did the historical courthouse, that was about 2.6 million. Mac gives me $6 million every year, so that cuts into that. And we did the PSB, that was 1.6 million. So we want to continue that $6 million every year for asset preservation. Things break down. The Sheriff's LEC, we just installed 2 boilers in there, getting ready for the winter. Big ticket item. I think that was about $600K to do that. Okay, and I got this from Joe. Balancing growth and preservation is one of the challenges. And I know we deal with that, and the council, we deal with that all the time when it comes to James Island, Johns Island, settlement community, McCullendale, and so forth. We have those guardrails of the UDB, the comp plan, and the ZELDAR to help us get there. But it's always going to be a challenge. Always going to be a challenge, so we respect you for that. And upcoming projects. With the completion of the Xenia complex, facilities and public works will be moving out of the PSB. So we're going to take the opportunity to reconfigure the first floor of the PSB. That first floor, we're looking at having a centralized permitting office, planning and zoning, building inspection, and stormwater. A one-shop, you can go in there and get information and drop off your permit. That first floor, citizens will use that. We will reconfigure. We had a charrette with LS3P about 2 weeks ago, and we gave them the initial requirements, so that will be happening once the facilities and public works move out of our building. The other thing we want to be doing is restructuring our building permit. I know we're one of 3 counties that requires trade permits or specialty permits. We have a commercial and residential, and under each you have mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Get permits for that. But Charleston County, under that, we have all these 11 specialty permits. So we're going to take those out and try to work it within the overall permit, speeding up that process. I know that Adrian and who's the other guy? Andy will probably do conflicts. Okay, and last but not least, our resilience and sustainability office, they are looking to have a conference, and so stay tuned for more details on that. And sure.
I'm going to have to be really quick because Christina Walt used all my time. Like, all my minutes are gone now. But I'm actually happy to come here and talk to you a little bit about my offices because they're not the wow, do I even need it? They're not the high-profile offices. They're not building the roads. They're not out there saving the babies. But they are here in the background working really hard to keep the county going. They're a very important cog in the county. So, which Thank you. So under me, I have the Assessor's Office, Revenue Collections, Economic Development, Contracts and Procurement, and also Human Resources. The first three of those offices all generate revenue for the county. The Assessor's Office maintains your property tax base. Revenue Collections collects over 12 fees and taxes on behalf of the county and our surrounding municipalities. And of course, Economic Development is working really hard to bring industry and business into our county to kind of help our tax base and raise our salaries for our citizens. Contracts and Procurement and Human Resources, they are not citizen-facing departments, they are internal county offices, and they work to support all the other 46 departments within county government to keep them and maintain them on a high level of service. So they get very little kudos, but most everything that happens with their help. So our key achievements, the Assessor's Office has completed the state-mandated countywide reassessment for 2025. They will be sending notices probably mid to late August. The assessor will give you a small presentation at one of your council committees, so I'm not going to go into depth on that. But I am going to kind of point out that reassessment is not revenue generating. It's an equalization. Revenue Collections this year has added the City of Charleston into their stormwater fees, so they now collect for all the municipalities in the county. They have managed to add a new fee or service every year, and what this does, it creates a more streamlined process for our citizens. It gives them one central location to go to. Our fearless administrator did bring up the fact that I worked this counter one day. It was not successful, he was right, but the citizens did eventually get the help they needed because the real people came back to work and took care of it. Economic Development this year have brought in over $1 billion worth of capital investment, created over 500 new jobs, and generated around $9 million in revenue through their multi-county park bills. Contracts and Procurement and Human Resources, they don't typically have key achievements, but they keep everybody else functioning at a high level so that we can give excellent service to our citizens. So they don't get a lot of kudos, so I am glad to talk about them. A lot of people have already mentioned it. Our biggest challenge right now is recruiting and retaining qualified personnel. This is especially acute in our assessor's office where we have to have appraisers. Right now, they're hiring people with little to no experience. They bring them in. They get them all the training and classes they need. They get them all the points they need to get licensing. They give them the licensing exam. They buy a 2-year license, and then they go somewhere else with that. And we have no mechanism in place to kind of ensure that they stay after we spend all this money or that we recoup any of this money. So once they go, it not only puts a burden on the staff because now they've got to pick up that workload, they also now have to train another new appraiser coming in. So it does create a lot of burden on them to do that, but once again, they have reassessment done and in and approved, so they have done a great job. Economic Development, they have been very highly successful at what they have done, but they are also starting to see more competition from our surrounding counties that are more rural, have bigger parcels. Once Palmetto Commerce is out, they're going to maybe have to switch their focus on and be more selective on what they bring in here because we just don't have the parcels for them. And one of their concerns, and it's been touched on here, is our infrastructure. Do we have the infrastructure now to support the businesses that we already have and hopefully to support businesses that are coming in? So they are also watching closely what goes on with the transportation sales tax because it is affecting them somewhat. Upcoming initiatives, I think elected officials, we've all touched on that. So we do have a new employee engagement officer. They're going to be focused on developing and leading a program that we hope will foster a more positive and connective workforce. The hope is that employee engagement will improve recruitment and retention. We are doing for the first time this year a huge well-being health fair from our employees. We'll have all representatives from our insurance carriers there, as well as outside vendors. We're trying to make it a big event where all departments can come together and intermingle and kind of make it, not a whole social event, they're going to get a lot of information, but to create an environment that they're part of the family. And I think the administration also pointed on that. We are part of the family. We're trying to foster that. And then other than that, we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing and providing a high level of service to Charleston County citizens and to our internal departments so that they can do their jobs too. And now Eric.
Question.
Oh, I didn't have questions.
Just real quickly, this applies to a lot of our DCAs. I've heard 2 or 3 times now where we hire people, we train them, we get them certified, and they're out the door.
Yep.
HR is under you, under Mr. Tootin. I wonder if we could work with the legal department on any type of clawbacks or contracts. I know in banking, investments, you get people certified, they leave. There's a way to recoup the dollars that you spent getting them up to speed. I don't know if that would be an impediment to our hiring, but so what if it is? Because we're losing money on them leaving early on us anyway. I would be very interested to know if we're looking at that, and if so, I'd like to hear maybe if we need to do an HR committee meeting or something sometime. We need to do something about that.
We did a long time ago have a contract in place with our appraisers so that if they left within 2 years, they had to start prorating costs back, but legal squashed at the time, and I don't know why, and that's been decades. So we probably should revisit it and look into it, and I have reached out to Ed Nisley, so I'm just waiting to hear back.
That could be in any number of departments, certifications.
Well, it has the same problem. It's a lot of money to train. Yeah.
Graduates that come through to see like the military, they're like, okay, we pay for this. You owe us a certain amount of time. I don't think there are concerns with the legal department. We're trying to work through this.
Yeah.
Right?
Good afternoon, Council. I'm a new face, but new name, but an old face. I'm over your Public Safety Director. These are the 7 departments that I currently is up my purview. All of them come with Consolidated Dispatch or Fire District, CJCC, ECCC, which is 911, Emergency Management Department, County Rescue, EMS, and our brand new Tri-County Biological Science Center. That project right there will be an amazing, amazing project once it's completed, not just for the county or the Tri-County community, but for the entire state of South Carolina. I assure you that. These are some key achievements that we've accomplished over a period of time. We modernized, expanded our county emergency fleet, which included EMS. EMS started out with 38 ambulances. We're now at 56. One into this current budget. All now fire just got approved last fiscal year with a brand new fire truck. This year we have 4 brand new tanker pumper fire trucks that's in the design phase for all now fire. Those new fire trucks carry 2,500 gallons of water throughout that northern part of Mount Pleasant. We've strengthened public safety workforce. We talked about recruitment. I can assure you, EMS Academy, we've only had 16 slots. We had over 102 applicants who applied. Our Biological Science Center, we have 2 analyst positions. We had over 80 applicants who applied. Our EMS chief position, we've had over 70 applicants apply. So our recruitment efforts that we're hitting hard with social media. I picked that too in the young folks' hands. They're doing magic with that, great things with that. They're doing real stories. They're telling real stories about public safety. We have advanced technology to improve our emergency response. Just this past year, Council approved CAD from Charleston County with Berkeley and Georgia County. That helped bridge the communication gap between Charleston County and Berkeley County. We improved, upgraded our facilities, EMS, and on the fire. What we did, we added more security features, no more of the push button combinations for the doors. We have scan cards now. We have better internet access. We have camera systems with medic stations as well as fire stations throughout the county. My greatest fear was getting that 2, 3 o'clock a.m. night call, where a firefighter or medic who's in the station by themselves, was harmed. We made it a point to make sure that we harden those facilities. CJCC is another great accomplishment for County Council. Across the state, they've duplicated 6 silver CJCCs throughout the entire county. Right now, they're working on the Juvenile Network to create another form of helping try to acknowledge or identify true causes for juvenile delinquency crime. They're also recognized nationally with law enforcement and police reform throughout the country. They speak at the ICP every year and highlight all the things that they've accomplished. About the Science Center, this year, past year, they participated in 6 peer support or peer forensics assessment across the nation, showcasing the regional and national recognition. What that is, we have 3 teams. We have a team of 3. The director, the tech lead, and the quality assurance manager. They're tapped to do an assessment on other DNA labs throughout the entire country. And there one here recently was SLED. So they helped SLED through their reaccreditation process. Challenges. Aging infrastructure and equipment. Fire stations, Albemarle Fire, out of 7 fire stations, 4 is over 40 years old. Our vehicles are still doing, we have improved, but our vehicles are aging through the maintenance. These vehicles, the EMS particularly, they travel 200 plus miles a shift. This is an ongoing thing. So we have maintenance issues. Shout out to Steve and his team. They do a great job getting these vehicles back on the road. But unfortunately, just the nature of the business, we do have some major maintenance issues that we try to address. Funding and technology. We've recently, Downward Center just purchased Carmine. That'll help identify duplication technology. And when we're done, once we identify those duplication, we reduce that, save county money. But we're also going out seeking grants, but as the technology increases, the maintenance cost increases annually. So that's going to be a long-term funding issue for us. Disaster coordination. We all working with the CGC school district to form an MOU with the shelters. This has been an ongoing issue for quite a while, but the school district have showed us that they will give us some shelters when that kind of time comes. FEMA, there's always uncertainty. Still uncertainties with FEMA. It's an ongoing thing. I applaud council for approving that disaster fund. That will be a great help in the future. Of course, competitive pay. Competitive pay will always be an issue. Public safety, locally and nationally. I can tell you the retention level across our directorate has improved. EMS had over 80 vacancies 3 years ago. With the 20 FTEs that council approved just July 1, right prior to that, we only had 4 vacancies. EMTs and paramedics. Albemarle Fire Department only had 1 vacancy. Council's approved 4 FTEs for Albemarle Fire. Our dispatch center have seen the lowest number of retention in years. I believe they've had 14 or 15 vacancies. So we have seen a great improvement with our staff across the board, retention. And one thing we're doing, we're we're focusing more on personal development. We're doing more coaching, mentoring. We're bringing independent coaches in. Kendra, great job with helping with EMS and that leadership issues. So we're working with partners like that to help us kind of change the work environment. So we're developing first, promoting later. So that's our plan. And that's it. Any questions?
I actually tried to yield my time to Mac, but they said I couldn't do that. So, thank you, Council, for allowing us to talk a little bit today. So I have fleet, environmental management, and public works. Public works' main function is to maintain our roadways, both earth and paved roads. They also have the monumental task of administering the CTC program as well as the TST sales tax, and that, as we all know, has a number of challenges. Environmental management, landfill, MRF, convenience sites. As Bill talked about, we are seeing an uptick in threats to our convenience site attendants. We have been installing cameras, using the sheriff's office to try to help deter some of that. If a convenience site attendant asks for an ID, they get all sorts of stuff. If a sheriff's deputy has to stand there beside it, they have it hanging out the window ready to show everybody that they have the ID that they need. So it's a challenge. Fleet operations, we have challenges finding mechanics, but they also maintain our yellow iron. They maintain the motor graders that you see going up and down the road, the bush hogs that are trimming beside the road. Key achievements, the handling of the snowstorm this year. We got a lot of kudos for that. We spent almost 1,500 man hours during that 1 week addressing that one storm. It did help us identify some of our equipment challenges that will allow us to kind of stock up on some usable parts next year before we get into the winter weather. Completing the Glen Powell Parkway is about a $24 million project. We've heard a lot of, a few speed bumps when we first started the project, when getting the traffic signals timed correctly, but I think it's been a very successful project. And we kicked off the 17 Main project, a $354 million project with a completion date of September 28. That's going to be our largest project ever undertaken by the Transportation Sales Tax. And we've passed 28 monthly inspections by DHEC, or what is now DES. These are surprise inspections. They don't tell us they're coming, but they come monthly to inspect our landfill to make sure we're adhering to the guidelines set forth in our landfill permits. Challenges, recruiting and training qualified people. For some of our key roles, we have just recently backfilled our pavement manager position. It has taken a year to find a qualified candidate for that. And we also have an issue of when we do find a qualified candidate, they're asking for salaries that exceed what we're currently paying our existing employees. And that becomes a challenge. And so that's, we kind of build up some of our benefits that we have. We typically catch most of our new employees coming out of the private sector who want a more work-life balance. But that continues to be a large challenge. Closing our funding gap. As all you know, we had a $280 million funding gap in 3 of the sales tax projects from 2016, and we still need to help close that gap. And we are looking at some of the scopes of those remaining projects and making sure they are more in line with what we originally estimated those projects to be moving forward. As Eric mentioned, reducing downtime on equipment. All of our vendors have backlogs. In normal time, if we set an EMS unit out for a remount, it should take 4 months. COVID messed all that up. It still hasn't straightened itself out. The last EMS unit, we had the box on the back remounted on a new chassis. That was 11 months at the vendor. So they still have not haven't been able to replacing 2 years ago. We expected it in September, but it has taken 2 years after we signed a commitment letter with the vendor to get that back truck. And we also need to, with Max help, we're starting to identify some recurring drainage funding, which we are not allowed to use sales tax money to do so. Upcoming initiatives, as Eric Adams presented in his March presentation, we are trying to advertise 54 projects this year. So we have 38 TST and 16 CTC projects. On the TST side, we have advertised 8. We have 3 in procurement. On the CTC side, we've advertised 5, and we have 2 additional in procurement. So we're on track to make those goals. We will complete the Carolina Commerce interchange in the fall of this year. That is about 6 months ahead of schedule, and our contractor has done a great job on helping us meet those goals. And locating landfill is another one of our, we've hired a firm to help us look for land. They will help us with identifying wetlands, soil types, all of the preliminary engineering studies that we have to do to find a parcel or parcels. We have a couple options in working with Mr. Q. We can try to find one large piece of parcel, or maybe try to find 2 smaller parcels on opposite ends of the county that would be easier to obtain. But based on where we locate it, we may need to build an additional transfer station to help move solid waste. That's all I got.
Maybe just a comment of thanks to you and Mr. Q. It's a huge enterprise fund, environmental management, and it was ignored for a long time. And under your leadership, it's been quiet, and quiet is good. We haven't had to have Mr. Kessler here for a couple years now. Mr. Q has taken this thing on, and we need about 10 more Mr. Qs. So, but thank you, just a personal point of privilege. I just want to thank you for the work you've done in that sector. Thank you.
So it's after 5 o'clock, so the bell rang. You're not going to let us out of class yet. Anyway, I have a couple of departments that are under me. The budget, who handles financial planning and assists with managing county's finances. Then the finance department that manages our records with a lot of assistance across the organization and reports the results. As far as key achievements, in this area, we've had a lot of changes in key positions that we've had. 5 out of 10 changed during fiscal year 25. Most of those were in the finance department. We've also assisted with evaluating the county's pay processes to see if we can make this more efficient. Working with Sharon and some of her departments. We improved timeliness of financial data. The first time that we've had both the regular audit and the single audit completed before December 31st. And our goal is to try to continue making that earlier each year. One of the largest challenges that we have in the financial area is our financial system, which it's an older system. It's overcomplicated at this point, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our goals. One of the things that Bob Stewart mentioned about training staff as we have changes, we need to focus more on that on the financial side. We're continuing to look on ways to streamline financial processes, and thanks to council providing funding, we're able to tackle the first part of our financial system, which is the timekeeping, payroll, human resources portion of it. And then the other phase will be coming later. So this is why I'm last. We've done a lot of long-range planning and looking at the county's finances. We think that we don't have enough money to maintain facilities and equipment at the funding level that we have now. We look like we got about a $15 million annual gap. On top of that, you've heard a lot of officials and county staff mention recruiting and retaining personnel is a challenge. When we developed the budget, we continued our existing programs with longevity and merit, but we did not anticipate as many of our surrounding governments doing a cost of living adjustment this year. We think we may fall behind them as far as being competitive if we don't try to address that. We've been monitoring how well our employees move as far as what inflation is. Over the last 10 years, we think we've kept up pretty well. 30% move over 10 years, a pretty decent amount. Based on those three pieces that we have and the administrator's action to do an equity adjustment a few years ago, merit and longevity, we think we've kept up with inflation. However, our employees are still telling us that they're having a harder time making ends meet. So we went looking for some additional information, and we found a federal, I forget what they're called, federal resource that looks at regions. And in 2018, Charleston County was right about average. It's reset each year at 100% being average. So back in 2018 calendar year, we were there. In 5 years, we've gone to 21% above average. This is reset each year, and it's a comparison to our peers. So this is over and above the cost of inflation. That 21% adjustment, that's why we're having a hard time with retaining employees. That's why some are going and living in Berkeley and Dorchester County, where it's a little bit better as far as the housing cost. As far as options moving forward, I think the more immediate one, we could look at our budget that we just passed. There's two things you can consider with that. One is a one-time bonus for employees that we would try to do in early November. The other is to consider increasing the millage rate. After this budget was passed, we also had the a reduction in FEMA funding that has concerned us significantly. And that tax increase could be used to shore up some reserves so we're better positioned to deal with that, and also to give some consideration to making our employees' pay competitive. As far as measuring how much that would mean on a $400,000 house, it's about $67. Currently, out of the 10 largest counties in the state, the county has the third lowest tax rate. And that would remain the same before and after if it went up to 4 mills. We would actually have a lower rate than Horry County when you add in the local option sales tax. The only one that's lower than us is Berkeley County, which I think they just had that mentioned in a recent article. So those are options. Or we could be looking going into 27 where we need to reduce services, which means we need less facilities, equipment, and we would need less personnel. And based on the good things that I've heard from officials and county staff and the programs that they're doing, I don't think that's the direction that we probably want to head, but if that's the direction the council gives us, staff will work toward that option.
Thank you. Mr. Tootin, any final words? Chairman?
Yes, so let's give all of the presenters a big hand. To finish. We did do some business here today, and as we've heard all of these challenges, the celebrations, we do recognize that we still have more work to do. Please look through the slide presentations of all of the individual directorates, the electeds, the appointed, everybody, because we're going to be revisiting this. You all know me. We're going to see it again as we continue refining and improving upon our processes in order to make the things that we do to serve the people of Charleston County that much more excellent and better. So again, thank you all. We may have to have another retreat before too long in order to engage in a little bit more dialogue around some of the things that we heard today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and hard to top that. So again, thank you all. Thank you for your attention, for attending, for folks staying on time. I want to congratulate you all on doing this. We work with a lot of local governments, and this is always an effective and efficient use of your time, and very few people are willing to commit the time and energy to do it. So, and the same thing with your strategic plan. We've been working with communities all over the state, and you guys have top-notch staff, and I know you know that, and the progress you all are making and the way you're monitoring it is really top of the game. We see very few people who have followed through like you all, so congratulations to you all, and that was exciting to see all of that. Please take your baskets, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you.